The story begins when two women met in the garden and talked about important issues for their family, and the young girl started a dialogue on a rather interesting topic. The young lady rather unexpectedly asked her mother, in case of the latter's rebirth, not to give birth to a girl and not to marry her father, as this would be a big mistake. The young lady's mother did not take all these words seriously. Instead, Baron Hadley's daughter still continued to convince her mother, reminding her that she was studying at a magic academy and knew about it. Lady Hadley assured her mother that, in the event of her rebirth, she must take advantage of such a chance and not repeat the mistakes of today. Miss Hadley was really puzzled by it. The woman still did not want to believe her daughter's words, joking that the latter completed the semester at the Magic Academy with a 6th grade. However, she ironically promised that she would not give birth to her again. The young girl continued to make various strange arguments for the woman, saying that her mother should meet another man who would be handsome and would also admire her mother's paintings. Taking a cup of hot tea in her hands and lowering her head, the woman listened to her daughter, who kept repeating that Miss Hadley must find true love. That same evening, Miss Hadley was on her way to her estate. Suddenly, the cart on which she was moving overturned, and the woman fell out of it, receiving numerous injuries and bruises that were incompatible with life. The best doctor in the country was invited to the house where the woman lived, but he said that only a miracle would help in this situation, and gave no guarantees of Miss Hadley's recovery. When the woman opened her eyes, she found herself in her parents' house in her nursery, where she had spent all her carefree childhood. The woman did not understand what was happening to her and why she was here. Suddenly, a maid entered her room who, turning to her, asked her to hurry up. The girl could not believe her eyes, since this maid died 6 years ago. The maid, seeing that Lady Reconnecting was very worried and excited, could not understand what was the matter, and looking at the girl with sympathy, inquired about her affairs. After regaining consciousness, the thought flashed through Reichen's mind that she had fallen into the past, so she began to search for her diary, but with some fear she kept remembering the words that her own daughter had said to her the day before. Reading paragraph by paragraph of her diary, Lady Reconnecting realized that she had indeed returned to the past. It was her 19th autumn, when the girl was still very young and carefree. The girl returned to her most carefree period of life, long before the end of her studies at the academy, to which she devoted almost 10 years, where the girl diligently and conscientiously studied. Scrolling through all these events in her head, she thought that maybe this is the chance her daughter was talking about. Maybe she can finally change her life radically. The Viscountcy of Copeland was very wealthy, and although they had their traditions, they did not acquire a great history. Recon, who was sure that she had nothing remarkable, thought the same way about herself. That is why Recon was married to Harold, the son of Baron Hadley. But family life did not seem as bright as his girlfriend imagined, despite the fact that Harold was a good father. Harold was a source of pride for his mother, Baroness Hadley, who repeatedly reminded Recon how lucky she was with her son, but the girl did not consider him an ideal husband at all. Family life for Recon together with Harold was gray and monotonous. The only joy for her was her daughter, who became a bright ray, born with an incredible talent for magic. And although some considered this talent quite ambiguous, Rachel and her daughter liked it very much, and the girl grew up in the full care and love of her parents, completely absorbing it. Thinking back, Recon couldn't believe that she was now 19 again, and her body was pure and innocent despite the fact that she had given birth to and raised her daughter. Looking at herself in the mirror, the girl kept recalling her daughter's words and running through her mind that she must find her true love, in case of reincarnation, and change her destiny. Realizing that this was really not a dream, but that she had really returned to her past, the girl rushed to her parents to check everything again, knocking the maid, who did not understand what was happening, off her feet. The girl, with tears in her eyes, ran to her parents' room, remembering how she had misbehaved with her mother during the last years of her life, never telling her about her feelings. After 70 years, her mother had completely lost her hearing, and every time she spoke, Recon was incredibly annoyed by this fact because the girl could not talk to her mother normally. Over time, Recon switched to sign language, but this began to annoy the young lady even more, which eventually led to conflicts, as happened on the last day of her mother's life. Realizing that she could fix everything in time, Recon began to shout loudly and call for her mother, and when she found out that she had gone to the garden, rushed to her to see her. The maid, who was passed by a puzzled Recon, was incredibly surprised by this behavior of the young lady, because it was not typical of her at all, and she never behaved like this. Running into her father's office, wearing only one pajama, the girl was very scared. But looking at her father, she could not say a word because she could not believe her eyes. The girl began to remember all the moments about her father. At the end of his life, her father became ill with dementia. Aging rapidly, he began to act like a real child, which also annoyed Riken. Father Riken could not understand what was happening to his dear daughter, but hugging her tightly and pressing her to his chest, he began to ask about what happened and what caused this behavior. It was at that moment at Father Riken's social reception that Sir Sturl Raft was present, who was invited to resolve urgent matters, as Sir was quite an influential person. As soon as Riken heard that name, her heart seemed to stop for a moment and her breathing completely slowed down. She couldn't believe that her first and true love was standing before her. In front of her stood a young man with a very attractive appearance, with silver hair like snow and bottomless blue eyes that looked right into her soul and could read every thought. Father Riken and all the maids in the palace were very worried about the young girl's behavior and did not understand the root of the problem and tried to calm Lady Copeland in various ways. Instead, Riken herself said that she just really wanted to see her father because she had a terrible dream that caused such an anxious state. Mr. Copeland believed that such behavior was only youthful maximalism and a way to attract attention to himself, but nevertheless asked Miss Rode to invite a doctor to the estate to examine the girl. The girl was truly ashamed of her behavior, and especially of the fact that Sir Sturl Raft had witnessed this event and seen her in such a state, so she asked her father to convey a sincere apology for it. Mr. Copeland was really surprised by his daughter's request, as he did not understand how she knew this respectable gentleman at all, and was once again convinced that Sir Sturl Raft was indeed an influential man. Rumor has it that Sir Sturl is the illegitimate son of a daughter of the Raft family. But despite these gossips, the man was really a worthy and ambitious person and showed himself as best as possible in the academy. Lady Rode, the maid of the Copeland family, once again turned to Riken to remind her that she had to go to the academy, but the girl only wanted to meet her mother and spend her day with her. Reflecting on her studies at the Elde Kingdom Academy, Riken realized that actually having a knack for magic was more important than the normal learning process that only took up precious time. According to Riken, wizards possessed the greatest power in the country, so almost everyone aspired to obtain this gift and enter the Elde Academy to further develop this skill and become more influential. However, those who did not have the talent and flair for magic also had the right to study at the academy. For example, many girls from wealthy families were taught art and etiquette there, raising them to be real noble ladies. For most girls, the real motivation for studying was a successful marriage to representatives of wealthy families. However, Riken had a completely different opinion, which she repeatedly emphasized to her daughter. Lying in her bed and reflecting on her past life, Riken still realized that devoting time to her favorite activities was more important during her time at the academy. When Riken's mother came, the girl quickly calmed down because she was finally realizing the whole reality. Over a cup of tea, mother and daughter discussed mundane questions about bouquets of flowers for a banquet. Having heard from her mother that there are not enough flowers in the garden this year, Riken suggested putting them not in big vases, but in small jars, so that there would be enough flowers from the greenhouse for small bouquets. Riken offered Miss Copeland a very beautiful arrangement consisting of buttercups, red roses, sprigs of eucalyptus, daffodils, and jasmine. Such a bouquet impressed and charmed the girl's mother. Having heard the day before from the maids that Riken was worried about something, the Duchess looked at her daughter and asked what was troubling her, to which the girl replied that she just wanted to talk to her mother. The Duchess was even somewhat amused by what she heard, since Riken had recently said that she was annoyed by her mother's constant grumbling and did not speak to her at all, ignoring all attempts at dialogue from Miss Copeland. The girl, remembering in one moment how much she had lost in her past, with a slight smile, looking at her mother, said that she really just wanted to communicate more and regretted her behavior. Riken hugged her mother, pressing her tightly against her chest, feeling again the warmth of her body and that incredible motherly love that she had so easily lost in her past life. The girl wanted to correct all the mistakes of her past, and she had a desire to tell her parents about her feelings of love every day, so that in the end, in the future, she would not regret the lost time. One day, sitting in the workshop and drawing a portrait of a beautiful girl, Riken contemplated her rebirth and could already make some small, but at the same time important conclusions for herself. First, Riken reconciled with her best friend Polana without holding any grudges against her, with whom she stopped communicating due to minor conflicts and quarrels. Secondly, the girl changed her outfit for the graduation banquet, choosing a satin purple dress with precious jewelry, despite the not very favorable comments of others about this image. Third, she began to tell her parents about her feelings. But even after rebirth, Riken did not become a new person for herself in one moment. In her opinion, everything remained as normal as possible. Realizing that very soon she will be married to Harold, she again remembered her daughter, who, at the last meeting, asked her, in case of reincarnation, to become a completely different person and to correct all mistakes. Remembering her daughter, Rachel could not hide her sadness and tears as she missed her very much. The daughter for Lady Copland was almost the whole universe and the meaning of her whole life. In one moment, Riken's punning thoughts were interrupted by a visit from her friend Deborah, who was enthusiastically asking about the prom and was particularly interested in Lady Copland's suitor for the event. Deborah, in turn, excitedly revealed that she was going to the graduation banquet with Mr. Lawrence. Riken, of course, was happy for her friend, but she was well aware of their unhappy future together. Riken, looking at her classmate, only said that her father had the final say in choosing a gentleman for this event, but she was not at all against meeting a wonderful person there to spend the evening with. Deborah was extremely delighted by these words, already imagining that her friend Riken would be able to meet her true destiny at this banquet, with which she would build her future life. That same evening, the girl, leaving the academy, stopped on the porch. Riken, waiting for her beautiful carriage, watched the rain fall from the sky, admiring it. While enjoying such a fresh and pleasant smell of rain, Rachel did not notice how a tall young man cautiously approached behind her, and turning around, she could not believe her eyes. It was he who stood in front of the girl, Sir Sturl Raft, who, looking so meekly into the eyes of Lady Copland, greeted her. Seeing him, the girl's skin was covered with many ants, and her breathing stopped for a moment. Glancing again at Sir Sturl Raft, embarrassed, Riken realized that he had indeed seen her in her pajamas the very day she had flown into her father's study, despite his worldly welcome. The man looked quite relaxed, but at the same time spoke his name and surname in a restrained and calm voice, greeting the girl and giving permission to address him simply as Sturmel. To continue the conversation, Rachel once again apologized for the awkward moment where the girl looked quite awkward and funny at the same time. However, the man reassured the girl and asked her not to worry. After another look at Sir Sturmel, Riken began to think about him and recall some moments from her past life. The girl considered Sturmel a real genius of his time. Sir Sturl Raft was a powerful sorcerer who possessed two elements at once, water and wind. But the world will not be able to learn about it until 2 years later, after he becomes the son of King Bearden. Until then, he remained the illegitimate son of Cyrionel Raft, the grandson of a marquis, but by no means an aristocrat. However, after the queen's death, King Bearden officially married Cyrionel, naming his son accordingly. Sir Sturl Raft was born illegitimate, therefore he could not inherit the rights to the throne in the future. That is why the king, with the consent of the queen, gave him the title of Duke of Sagna. In one moment, a very talented wizard and bachelor duke, who was the dream of many girls, became a star of society, but until that moment, you have to wait a few more years. Reflecting on all this, Riken understood that in any case, the future duke was not to her liking, and therefore she did not create vain hopes, although he really was her first love once upon a time. And although now the future duke is an ordinary young man who is not as prominent as he will be in the future, but Riken's heart still trembled and beat wildly at the sight of the man. Looking at him, the girl realized that he remained the way she remembered him. His soft and calm demeanor, but at the same time, a cold look, charmed the girl even more strongly. Riken understood that there was almost no special difference from that time, and plunging into the world of her memories, the girl almost broke away from reality. But Sturmel Raft's voice returned the lady from heaven to earth. Sir Sturmel asked the girl if the reason she was here was because she didn't have an umbrella, to which the girl answered in the affirmative, and added that she could ruin her dress if it got wet in the rain. In addition, Riken noted that she didn't have to wait very long, as she was to be met by a maid who knew that she was returning home at this time of day, so she should not be late. In the course of the conversation, Riken informed that, in case she gets very cold, the girl can return to the workshop. Yes, the man found out about the fascination of drawing a charming lady, which quite surprised him. Later, Raft said that he was also interested in art and repeatedly visited art exhibitions because he liked it so much. This information struck Reichen to the very heart. The girl explained her surprise that few people in the academy were interested in art, as everyone was focused on either studying or building relationships, noting that such hobbies were for timid people like her. Sir Sturl Raft looked at Reichen in surprise, but said that she does not look like a timid girl at all, but on the contrary, she gives the impression of a rather self-confident and brave person. It is only necessary to remember the case when Reichen, in only her pajamas, broke into her father's office, because at that moment, that was exactly what she needed, and she did not pay attention to everyone around her. Sturl Raft, finally remembering his manners, asked if Lady Reichen was cold, to which she replied that it was time to go home, and began to slowly walk away from the man of her dreams. However, suddenly the same cherished words came from his lips, and he offered to guide Lady Reichen to the carriage along the paths of the academy and provide a reliable and safe escort for the girl. Sir Sturl Raft shared his flair for magic with Reichen and said that he can handle the weather quite easily on days like this, as he is a wind wizard and can tame it with ease. The man held out his hand to the girl, inviting her to use his services, to which the girl reacted rather surprised, not knowing if she deserved to accept such help and take advantage of this chance. Reichen, thinking about her husband, came to the conclusion that he had shown interest in almost no one in his time. Raft was not the kind of person who would use magic and see off a stranger. But thinking that luck finally smiled on the girl thanks to the fact that she was reborn, Reichen decided to accept this offer and take advantage of the chance despite her worries. Step by step, the girl realized that the land had become completely dry thanks to Sir Sturl's magic, as he could control both wind and water with ease, enchanting Lady Reichen even more. Walking along this magical path and talking about the meaning of magic, the girl kept thinking that this was the best moment of her life and wanted to imprint this memory in her head. Penny the maid, who was waiting for Reichen with an umbrella in her hand, felt very excited, as she was worried that she would not meet the lady in time, which would cause the girl to get completely soaked. After thanking Sir Raft for his help, Reichen went to the carriage and thought that this was a completely new memory with Sturl, which she so wanted to tell her daughter about. And remembering her beloved daughter again, Reichen decided to act boldly and change her destiny, becoming a person who can conquer all the peaks, which is why she invited Sir Raft to the prom next year. Sir Sturl was really very impressed by this invitation, and looking at the girl with a gentle smile on his face, said in a gentle and joyful voice that he would gladly accept her offer. The girl was over the moon with happiness. She was filled with a range of emotions and couldn't say a word anymore because she couldn't believe her incredible luck and such a lucky chance. Arriving at her estate, Reichen, of course, told her mother about this news, who in turn was filled with wild disappointment at hearing it, as she considered Raft an unworthy suitor for her daughter. Continuing to scold Reichen, Miss Copeland repeated that the girl had always been decent and had never been the center of attention in society. So the woman did not understand where these sudden whims came from. Everyone already knew that Sir Sturl Raft is the illegitimate son of Marquise Raft. In society, it was believed that an illegitimate child is a symbol of immorality and a stain on the family's reputation. And even being born into a noble family, Sir Sturl Raft, unfortunately, could not inherit the title of his parents, no matter how great a wizard and worthy man he was. Many people said that it would be better for the man if he was born into an ordinary family, then his talent for magic would be recognized faster and he would easily get a new title. In general, Marquis Raft's family was very noble, immediately ranking second to the Imperial family, but its status changed greatly precisely because of Sturl's appearance in this dynasty, tarnishing the family's honor. Arguing to her mother, Reichen once again emphasized that this invitation was not from Sir Sturl Raft, but from her, so she asked her not to accuse her husband of anything. The mother was really surprised and pointed out again that no one but her father or grandfather accompanied Reichen to such social events. Instead, the girl simply said that she wanted a change, and Sir Raft showed mercy to her. Mick Copeland's reaction was quite obvious. She didn't want to understand her daughter, and even more didn't want to imagine her future with this man, so she just laughed ironically at Reichen. Besides, Miss Copeland sternly insisted that she would not allow her daughter to marry this man, who only smiled heartily, showing by her expressions that she did not hope so. Hugging her mother tightly, Riken whispered in her ear that Miss Copeland shouldn't worry about her, as the lady is grown up enough to act in the right situation and make the right decisions. Looking at her daughter again with a little judgment, Miss Copeland asked why Riken had made this decision after all, without taking a member of the family with her this time, as was always the case. Hearing the question, Riken changed the subject and asked her mother about her best score, and the answer was quite obvious, as it was the very day she first went out accompanied by Riken's father. The girl was sincerely fascinated by the relationship of her parents and wanted to have a similar one, but her family life with Harold was without feelings, emotions, and boundless love. For a moment, the girl wondered why she had begun to think of Harold again, since all she wanted to do was live in the here and now and enjoy her moments with Sir Raft. Later, a maid approached Riken, who offered to order medicine that would calm the girl down, but Lady Copeland replied that she was not at all worried about the important upcoming event. Penny the maid was wildly delighted with Lady Copeland, as she did not expect that she was so bold as to invite Sir Raft to the ball, already dreaming of the future of these two lovers together. Penny remembered how recently Raft had escorted Lady Copeland to the carriage, using his full arsenal of magic so that only Riken's dress would be damaged, which could indicate the man's possible feelings. However, Riken denied all possible romantic motives, and the maid still continued to make arguments that confirmed Sir Sturmel's sympathy for Lady Copeland. After listening to Penny's various hypotheses, Riken insisted that the maid not discuss this with anyone else, because Lady Copeland knew that the most interesting thing in society was gossip about relationships. Looking admiringly at Riken, Penny, of course, promised to keep the subject a secret between the girls, and pointed out that Lady Copeland looked her happiest now, and the maid liked it very much. Suddenly, Riken remembered a sad story from the past about Penny, namely the period of her unhappy married life. So in order to correct her friend's situation, she asked if the girl currently had a boyfriend. Penny, in turn, with a hearty laugh, said that she does not want to build a relationship with anyone, because she is still very young and wants to spend time to herself, and is not ready for married life. Instead, Riken told Penny that if there were any problems, she could turn to Lady Copeland, as the latter held the maid in high esteem and wanted to help the young girl. Later, collecting her thoughts, Lady Riken began writing her letter to Sir Raft, describing their last meeting and thanking him again for agreeing to escort the girl to the prom. In her letter, Copeland noted that she was very much looking forward to her husband in the near future at her estate, or to treat him to delicious tea. Sturmel, having received this letter, could not take his eyes off it, rereading it. Opening the envelope, Sir Raft saw that Lady Copeland had placed lavender petals next to the letter. The incredible aroma clouded the man's head. It was indeed a very successful gesture that was remembered for a long time. Suddenly, Sir Raft was approached by Gerald, a friend of the Sir, who curiously began to ask about the addressee of this letter, because he believed that such an envelope could only be sent by an unmarried woman. In addition, Gerald noted that Sir Raft's correspondence with a woman is a very strange phenomenon for a man, since he almost does not pay attention to girls, refusing the most beautiful beauties. It is only necessary to mention the heiress of Count Maimon, Wayne, a girl of incredible beauty, whom Sir Raft simply ignored, pretending not to notice her. And so it was with all the girls who had the hope of getting to know each other. However, Sir Sturmel explained that indeed the girls were incredibly beautiful, but it was not known what kind of people they were, and this was the most important factor for a man in choosing his chosen one for a life together. On the other hand, Gerald showed a complete lack of understanding of his friend's actions, and continued to inquire about the addressee of the letter, because he was sure that the Sir would not accept an envelope from an unknown person. In a calm and balanced voice, Sturmel announced that this letter was from Lady Riken Copeland, as he had agreed to escort the girl to the nearest ball. This information stunned the boy. Sir Raft still remembered the rather neat handwriting of the girl, and how the text was successfully chosen to express briefly and succinctly all his feelings and describe all the events. This could not help but fascinate the man. Remembering the image of Lady Riken, the man caught himself thinking that the girl did not have the goal of purposefully pleasing him at all. Instead, there was a carefree and lightness in her letter which attracted him. Sir Raft's companion did not understand his friend at all, for Lady Copeland was of ordinary appearance, and in the boy's opinion, not a suitable match, noting that Sturmel's taste in girls had changed a great deal. Sturl calmly remarked that he would keep the girl company only once, so there was no need to worry. On the other hand, Raft's friend still did not understand how Lady Copeland could attract attention to herself. After thinking about this question, Sturl finally realized that he simply could not refuse a young and beautiful girl who had gathered immense courage to invite him to such an event. Hearing that Sir Raft simply could not refuse the girl, Gerald could not believe his ears, because in the past it was not a problem for Sturl to find another refusal. Raft was already quite sick of hearing all the complaints about his recent action, so changing the subject, he asked Gerald about the project to stabilize the world's climate. At that time, Riken, being in her room, could not think about anything else except the upcoming event, which she was very much looking forward to, as very soon a very important guest for her was due to arrive. Early in the morning, Penny, the maid, came into Riken's room with a red fish in her hands, who said that it would help Lady Copeland to bring her face to the desired and attractive appearance. However, this idea was not entirely to Lady Copeland's liking, and she asked Penny to bring honey into the room as, in Riken's opinion, it was more useful and effective than red fish. Looking at herself in the mirror, Rachel caught herself thinking that she is attractive now, so she decided to take care of herself from her youth, so that in the future she would look even more perfect against the background of her peers. At the same time, Rachel looked through her wardrobe and realized that in the past, she liked very cute dresses with a lot of netting, which was a bit annoying at the moment because it looked quite primitive. In order to look absolutely attractive, Riken began to think about the color of her outfit, to be at the same time beautiful but not too loose. At that time, Penny entered the room bringing honey for the girl. To complete her look, Riken wanted to remove the netting on the sleeve of the dress, so she asked Penny if she could alter the outfit, to which the maid replied that it would take quite a while. So Riken, to save money, asked Penny to go to Miss Copeland and get a handkerchief to cover the lace. After that, she gladly offered the maid to make face masks together with her. Riken, taking honey and red wine in her hands, began to mix them together to make a homogeneous mixture for the face, which can reduce wrinkles and make the skin smoother and tighter. Meanwhile, Mother Riken, having bought a new handkerchief for her daughter and sent it, was amazed that Lady Copeland turned the estate upside down, just for the sake of her outfit, which was not at all characteristic of a girl. But Rachel was really happy, getting such a desired look, with her hair in an elegant bun and wearing very attractive and precious earrings. The girl looked amazing. Looking at Riken and remembering herself in her youth, Miss Copeland wanted to add one small detail to her daughter's image, namely a precious brooch, which was very important for a woman. Miss Copeland said the brooch was very precious to her, as her husband had given it to her before the wedding. Looking at her daughter once again, the woman could not help but admire the beauty of Riken. At that time, one of the representatives of the servants came into the room and announced that a guest had arrived at the Copeland family estate, which Lady Riken was very much waiting for with great impatience and expectation. Sir Sturl arrived at the estate with an incredible bouquet of flowers and in an exquisite outfit who, seeing Riken in such an incredible role, was completely speechless, stopping his gaze on the girl's eyes. After receiving a bouquet of incredible flowers, Lady Riken was very surprised and charmed by such an act at the same time, as she wished so much that the day would come when she could receive such a gift from Raft. After bidding her husband to go to a more comfortable place, Lady Riken took Sir Sturl's hand and they went together to the room where everything was already prepared for their tea and social conversation. The room where Riken and Sturl were was previously used for music lessons, which is why there were musical instruments there, but it also served as a place for tea ceremonies. That very day the weather was incredible and sunny, and the room had an amazing view of the garden, which greatly charmed Mr. Sturl, who inquired with particular interest about the plants in the greenhouse. The garden of the Copeland family was not at all unique, but very atmospheric and cozy, especially in the period of November. Glancing once more out the window, Sir Raft once again expressed his admiration at the incredible sight. Finally, over a cup of fragrant tea, a conversation began between Rachel and Raft, and the girl once again expressed her gratitude for her husband's arrival, saying that she was incredibly happy to be paired with him for a social event. The above prompted the husband to finally express some of his concerns about this, as he did not want to inconvenience Lady Copeland by being with her at an upcoming social event. The fact was that the man was really ashamed of his origin, so he expected that the girl would not want to have anything to do with him after learning about it, and would write a letter rejecting her offer. Upon hearing this, Lady Riken's eyes filled with sadness as she still knew exactly what was troubling the man, and she knew of his background and the unhappy childhood that the little boy had. His mother, Sirianel, was abandoned by her husband when she was already pregnant with Stermel. Since then and throughout her life, the woman was at the epicenter of all gossip as she gave birth to a child out of wedlock, which was considered unacceptable. However, Rachel herself saw no cause for concern at all, so she reassured Sir Raft by stressing to him that she knew of his background, but that she did not judge people by that criterion. At that very moment, the man was filled with a spectrum of different emotions and was stunned by such sincerity of the girl, because there were very few people who continued communication after learning the whole truth about him. Glancing at the girl, Sir Raft was truly thankful that he could be with Lady Copeland as he really was, and not worry about possible judgments about his true parentage. Their dialogue was gaining new momentum and almost reached the point where Lady Riken wanted to express her most sincere emotions. But just then, Penny the maid came in with a vase of flowers. The bouquet was really incredible and attractive. Taking it in her hands, Lady Riken decided to ask her husband why he bought asters for her, since they are not often used in compositions. The lady had asked for this particular selection, as these were her favorite flowers, and she was very pleased to receive them even more than the luxurious roses or lilies. With a sincere smile, Rachel said she would leave them in her room. The man looked at the girl with a surprised look and asked if they would really continue to stand without water in the vase, to which the girl replied with a slight smile that she would certainly pour water there. Being interested in the topic of flowers, Sturl asked if something should be added to the water so that the flowers would stand longer, to which the girl replied that it is advisable to put a copper coin or a small amount of sugar in the vase. Hearing this, Sir Raft waved his hand and uttered the magic words, instantly filling the entire room where Lady Riken and the man were with powerful energy. A wave of magic instantly enveloped the bouquet of flowers. This action was incredibly exciting. Watching all of this, Lady Rachel couldn't say a word as she finally heard the actual spells that bewitched the girl. Thanking Sir Raft for the fact that her flowers will now grace the girl's eye much longer, Lady Copeland compared Sturmel's actions to something incredible, giving his students the highest marks. At one point, Penny the maid came back into the room, bringing with her a golden tray on which was a velvet tie and sketches of the various dresses that had been prepared for Riken for the social event. After looking at all the sketches, Sir Raft was really surprised, because it is usually customary in society to wear very bright-colored clothes for such receptions, but the drawings were quite calm shades. Instead, Lady Riken said that it is better to choose what suits the person, not what is currently in fashion, so she chose the color purple for herself, as it emphasizes her appearance in the best possible way. In addition, the girl gave her husband a rather nice gift in the form of a velvet tie, as she wanted to thank him for his friendliness and sincerity. Mr. Sturl was very impressed by this gesture of Lady Copeland, and after thanking her, he could not help but admire such a wonderful gift, going through it in his hands. With his head, the man realized that he had no right to continue the story with Riken, but his heart made him turn to the girl and offer to create special cufflinks together. Raising his hand and showing the cufflinks he was wearing at that moment, the man said that in order to look organic enough with a girl, he needed more sophisticated jewelry. The man noted that he doesn't often appear in public, so he didn't need to wear something fancy before. After hearing all of this, Lady Rachel was truly amazed, her gaze full of surprise. Looking at Riken, eyes full of hope for another meeting with the girl, he asked if it would not be difficult for Lady Copeland to help her husband with the selection of new cufflinks. Lowering her eyes and barely hiding the redness of her cheeks, the girl, with a slight tremor in her voice, said that she would be very happy to keep Sturl company next time. That same evening, after an unlikely encounter with Sir Raft, Lady Copeland asked her maid to leave her in the room, as she wanted to be alone with her thoughts. The girl could not admire the flowers, which were special to her, because they were a gift from Sir Sturl. However, at the same time, she was very excited, because very soon she was waiting for another meeting with Raft. Riken was very troubled by the fact that she was beginning to feel rather warm feelings for Sturl, and she could not understand what to do, as she was thinking about the future meeting with Harold, which would take place after the graduation. What worried Lady Copeland the most was that, if she was not with Harold, she would never be able to see her daughter again, for whom she missed terribly, but when she calmed down, the girl dismissed these thoughts. The next morning, upon arriving at the academy where Rayhan studied, the girl shared with her friend Mariella that she was going on a date with Sturl, which caused a lot of emotions in the latter. Mariella, overcome with emotion, shouted about Lady Rachen's upcoming date with Sir Raft so loudly that it was probably heard by all the students at the girls' academy. Friend Riken really did not expect to hear such information from Lady Copeland, because throughout her life, the girl was quite shy and did not have any relations with men at all. Indeed, Lady Riken thought for a moment that not so long ago she was certain that she would marry whomever her father chose for her, and now she could make such important decisions for her life. Mariella was full of incredible energy and desire to know all the details of her friend's upcoming date, asking about all the moments, and also clarifying whether she and Sir would be just the two of them. Instead, Lady Riken, reassuring her worried friend, informed her that Miss Copeland, of course, would not leave her and her husband alone, so they would be accompanied by Miss Rode, the family's maid. Mariella had a very interesting idea in her head, and looking at Riken with eyes full of incredible enthusiasm, she said that Sir Raft must be very fond of Lady Copeland. Riken, of course, denied everything. Instead, Mariella began to give quite strong arguments, saying that an invitation to a date is really a very important step, which can indicate a possible sympathy. Continuing her monologue, Mariella suggested that during the last tea party, the atmosphere between the pair was indeed very comfortable and cozy as Sir Raft wished to continue. Hearing this, Lady Riken began to recall all the details of the last meeting with Sir Raft and realized that indeed their rendezvous had been incredibly comfortable, leaving a rather pleasant aftertaste. At that moment, the heart and brain inside Riken were fighting each other, and the girl could not find a place for herself because she understood that she must marry Harold despite her strong feelings of sympathy for Raft. At this time, the girls were joined by another friend, Polana, who curiously asked what the classmates were discussing so excitedly, to which Mariella told the news about the future couple for Riken at the prom. The girls were discussing Sir Sturmel's persona so loudly that the other female students overheard it, namely Wayne, the daughter of Count Maymond, who was madly in love with Mr. Raft, so they came closer. Looking at Lady Wayne, Riken thought about the fact that earlier in her past life, she had admired her personality because she considered her to be quite a beautiful, confident, and experienced woman who could handle everything. However, her vision completely changed, and at that moment it felt like Lady Wayne was only trying to be an adult, but in fact, even compared to daughter Rachen, she was acting like a little child. Approaching Lady Copeland, Wayne, together with her friends, looking at the girls on the opposite side, asked Riken about Sir Raft, whom they had been discussing so eagerly and loudly. Rachen decided to be open and honest, so she put her hand on her heart and told the whole truth, saying that she was going to go to the prom with Sir Raft because he was friends with her father. Hearing this, Lady Wayne could barely contain her anger and disappointment, as it was well known that she had feelings for Sir Raft that were so strong, but unfortunately, completely unrequited. Without saying another word, Wayne and his friends said goodbye to the girls and went about their business. Suddenly, Polana, turning her head towards the window, saw something that surprised her. Polana saw a bird of unearthly beauty created from air and water. This species was called Madoga, and everyone knew that it could only be created by sorcerers who possessed these elements. Taking this incredible bird in her hands, Lady Riken could not believe her eyes, as for the first time in her life she was able to touch this unusual bird, which had the property of being a guide between people. This magical creature was a kind of mediator in the distance between Lady Rachen and Sir Raft. The young people were able to talk through this bird, and using the opportunity, the man agreed on the details of the meeting. Riken's friends, hearing their conversation, could not find their seats, as they were very worried and even somewhat jealous of Lady Copeland, since this act of the man was very romantic and unexpected. Lady Riken once again repeated to her friends that this was just a trip to get new cufflinks for her husband, and was not a cause for excitement, so she said goodbye to the girls and left the academy. Leaving the academy, Lady Riken felt a bit embarrassed as she thought Wayne was very angry after hearing about the girls' plans for the prom and her partner. However, the girl decided to put these thoughts aside and concentrate on the meeting with Sir Raft. That day, Riken decided to wear rather high heels, which were somewhat difficult to walk in. Seeing Sir Sturmel, Lady Copeland instantly forgot all the troubles and bad thoughts that were in her head before meeting her husband. Raft's smile alone filled the girl with positive emotions. Sir Raft noticed that the girl was walking with rather heavy books, so he offered to take them and thus make the walk easier for Lady Riken, showing himself to be a true gentleman. The girl was very impressed by this gesture, and of course she added this moment to the chest of pleasant memories with Raft. Looking at her husband, Riken announced that her maid, Miss Rode, was already waiting in the carriage. With a slight tremor in his voice, Sir Sturl offered his hand to the girl, so that it would be more convenient for her to walk on the heels, and they went together to the carriage. Just by touching Sturl's hand, Lady Riken felt her heart begin to beat at an incredible speed, and she again returned to the memories of the past, comparing Raft with Harold, her future husband. Wearing rose-colored glasses, Lady Riken took a moment to think about her future together with Sir Raft, as she began to feel an overwhelming attraction and sympathy for him, and it actually began to bother the girl. Stepping into the carriage, Lady Riken introduced her friend to Miss Rode. After getting to know each other, they set off, but the atmosphere was somewhat tense, as the maid was not entirely happy about such a meeting. To lighten the atmosphere a bit, the girl began to inquire about the destination of their little trip, but Sir Raft informed her that it would be a small surprise for Riken. Lady Riken was really surprised to hear this answer, as she had no idea where they might be going, but she definitely understood that they weren't going to a jewelry store to buy cufflinks. Arriving at last at their destination, Sir Sturl got out of the carriage and shook hands with Lady Riken and told them that they were finally there. Lady Copeland, holding her breath, was in incredible anticipation. Lady Riken was overcome with emotion when she smelled the paint and realized that they had arrived at Anzola Street, the place where all the best artist shops were gathered and where all the artists of the continent come. Looking surprised at Raft, Lady Riken asked why they had come here, but Sturl, remembering the girl's passion for drawing, could not help but bring her here. Sir Raft said that there was the best artist shop nearby, but he suggested going somewhere else in case the girl didn't like everything here. But Rachel was just over the moon with happiness, as the girl had been waiting for that moment all her life and was very happy that Sir Raft had brought her there, so they went in search of tools and paints. All artists dreamed of coming to this street, because it was here that the best materials were collected, as well as the most talented works of the great artists of the country were highlighted, which was so necessary for inspiration. Sir Raft was rather surprised by the fact that Lady Riken had never been to this street, despite her boundless passion for art. Instead, the girl said that usually the maids bought everything they needed. Looking at the girl, the man, with enthusiasm in his voice, said that it would be quite good if Lady Riken tried to choose something for herself, exactly what she liked. The man's thoughts were filled only with Riken. He couldn't think about anything else, and was already planning his next meeting with the girl, thinking of where best to invite her so that Lady Copeland would like everything. Looking at the man in surprise, Lady Riken wondered why he had such a pleasant and sincere smile on his face, which she had never seen before. The man said that he feels a certain peace and harmony when he is next to the girl, and also added that Riken has a wonderful energy that always creates comfort around her. Lady Riken was thanked for such a wonderful compliment, and the two young men went to the shop. Going inside, Sir Sturl introduced the girl to the owner of this shop, Mr. Cartal. Mr. Cartal was very pleased to see such a beautiful girl by Sir Raft's side, and after paying her a few compliments, he took her by the hand to greet her as best he could. The store also had an exhibition of incredible paintings by young artists. Cartal emphasized that aristocrats did not like this at all, but Riken could not admire these masterpieces. Cartal suggested going up to the second floor to pick up materials for Lady Riken, telling her that it was in this shop that the girl could find all the dyes, pencils, and paints she needed. On the other hand, Miss Rode, watching the way Lady Riken behaved in Raft's presence, could not believe that a girl could really like such a man. Riken, having taken a fascinating look at the new tools and canvases, could not believe her eyes, because she had never seen such a huge assortment of high-quality painting supplies. Turning her gaze towards Sir Sturl, Riken asked the man if he had an interest in painting or sculpture, to which the young man replied that he had no such experience. Sir Sturl explained that he came to the shop because the latter needed to improve his magical power, by adding dye to one of the streams of water to identify them. However, Cartal noted that Sir Sturl was also interested in painting, as he had recently come to his shop to purchase an album and some drawing pencils. It felt that Sir Sturl was really embarrassed because he didn't want to tell Lady Riken about it, as he thought he had no artistic flair at all, but he wanted to learn how to sketch. Changing the subject of conversation, Sir Raft mentioned that Lady Riken attends a drawing club at the academy, so he suggested that she also show her works and show off her true talent. To support Sir Raft, Cartal pointed out that the man could display his magical abilities on canvas, namely multicolored streams of water, and this could appeal to a large audience of people. Instead, Sir Sturl assured that Kartal's proposal is complete nonsense, as random mixing of colors is not art at all and does not deserve the right to live. That day, Sir Raft had intended to purchase some purple-hued paints, as he wanted to test their interaction with Sturmel's magical water streams, so he asked Kartal to show him the palette. After that, Sturmel decided to share another magical curiosity with Riken. Raising his hand, the man showed a cufflink on which were placed magical stones. A magic stone is the basis of any sorcerer's tool. It worked differently for each mage. Usually, they used various household items from which they could quickly extract mana, magical power. Raishin immediately remembered how her daughter had also created a magic tool from an ordinary pocket watch, but she rarely used it because it contained very little mana. Returning from her memories to reality, Lady Riken was surprised by Sturmel's offer to purchase new professional brushes and canvas for the girl. Lady Riken, with a sincere smile and a look at her husband, said that finally she would like to make such a purchase herself, since she had not personally done such a thing until that moment. In order to try the paint that Kartal brought, the girl took a brush and began to paint. It turned out that this paint was an incredible color, more transparent than amethyst and brighter than purple jade. As she continued to draw, Lady Rachel wondered about the process of creating magic stones and mana in general. Instead, Sir Raft said he would be happy to demonstrate it later. Sir Raft said that this required a lot of materials, and he would be happy to show the process in a few days if Lady Riken had the opportunity to visit the wizarding tower at the academy. The girl was very happy with such an invitation from her husband. Suddenly, she remembered that she had brought for Sir Raft the crystal bird that Sturmel had sent for her on the eve of their meeting. However, the man said that the bird now belonged to Lady Riken and explained that it was made of crystals, so the girl could use it as an ornament or for other household purposes. After hearing the conversation between Lady Riken and Sir Sturmel, Kartal asked the young wizard to share the magic attributes that had already lost their power for his shop, which Raft refused. After taking Lady Riken away, Sturmel began to share the secret of returning magical power to the crystal bird he had given the girl, explaining how it would be able to transmit messages between them. The girl was really impressed by such magical abilities of the crystal bird and began to think that she would not be able to accept such an incredible thing as a gift. However, Sir Raft emphasized that he created this magical attribute especially for Lady Rachel, so he really wanted her to accept it with joy, and they could continue their communication. This bird had only one function, the transmission of messages, and in case of its non-use, it was an ordinary decoration. The girl really liked this thing and eventually accepted it. Suddenly, Kartal intervened in the dialogue, who suggested that the man and the girl take a walk along Enzola Street, namely to visit the Rosenthal Gallery, as incredible works of art were collected there. Sturmel liked Kartal's proposal very much, but he insisted that this gallery should be walked, so he inquired about the condition of Miss Rode, who of course had no desire to go anywhere. However, Kartal quickly took matters into his own hands and invited Miss Rode to stay with him, treating her to delicious overseas tea, so that Riken and Raft could go for a walk just the two of them. Miss Rode did not like this proposal very much, as she did not want to let Riken out without supervision. But the maid agreed, and the lady and Sir Raft went for a walk together. The atmosphere during the walk was incredible. Lady Riken could not help but admire the beauty of that street, which filled her mind and heart, and she wanted not to lose a single opportunity to review everything. Suddenly she saw a shop selling paintings by ordinary aspiring artists. She was really interested in it because it was in such works that real life was felt. Looking through the albums where the best works of artists were depicted, the girl suddenly came across a page that made her hold her breath, because she saw the signature at the top, Rodrigo. Lady Riken could not believe her eyes because it was the work of a very talented artist, whose name would be known to the whole world, but after 20 years and only after his death. The girl, looking at this drawing, could not believe that the works of this artist were so easily sold in an ordinary store, because she knew that in the future it would be so difficult to find these paintings. Instead, the shopkeeper said that it was just an ordinary sketch, not worthy of the attention of such a noble lady as Lady Riken, suggesting that the girl look at other works. When the girl found out that this work was sold for only 50 bronze coins, she was shocked, because she knew that in 20 years this painting could only be purchased for an incredible amount. Sir Sturmel, seeing that Lady Riken was very interested in this particular work, offered to buy it for the girl as a souvenir, in memory of their incredible walk on the street of Enzola. Lady Riken was really impressed by this man's gesture, but asked him to buy this work for 2 silver coins in order to financially support this talented artist at the beginning of his journey. After purchasing this painting, Lady Riken asked the shopkeeper to tell Rodrigo that the girl would be waiting for him soon at Viscount Copeland's estate to meet him in person. The lady also added that if he visits her, the boy will receive a monetary reward. Hearing this information, the shopkeeper was stunned and said that Rodrigo would be very happy. The girl really wanted to help this artist to see his own success in life, with the aim of sponsoring Rodrigo, if only with painting materials. The girl and the man, realizing that they had very little time left to visit the gallery, went back to Kartal's shop, agreeing that they would visit Rosenthal next time. Of course, inspired by the atmosphere of art, a suitable topic of conversation arose between the pair. Riken noted that she did not like the most prominent paintings that all aristocrats liked. This opinion was also shared by the husband. Realizing that she and Raft had something in common, Lady Riken curiously inquired about Sir Sturmel's favorite painting, which impressed him greatly. Instead, Sir Raft said that he had recently become interested in art, but there was indeed one painting that he liked, but this work was untitled and untitled. Seeing that Lady Riken was somewhat tired from the walk, the man suggested that the girl stop and rest in a cafe to gain strength for the further journey to Kartal's shop. Lady Riken was really tired because she was in high heels, but she didn't want her maid, Miss Rode, to be angry and upset because she would be waiting so long for Lady Copeland. Instead, Sir Sturmel could not afford to let the lady be very tired, so he still insisted on rest, promising that he would take care of all the complaints and indignation of Miss Rode. Sitting down at an empty table in the cafe, the man offered Lady Riken a cup of coffee, asking first if she liked such a drink. The girl willingly agreed to this offer. Looking at the people who were relaxing so carefree in this cafe, the girl thought for a moment that she, at that moment, became one with all the people who were on Enzola Street. Sir Sturmel, quickly ordering a drink for himself and Riken, returned to the girl with a warm blanket, which he later draped over her elegant shoulders to keep Lady Copeland comfortable. Later, inspired by the topic of drinks, Lady Riken spoke with interest about her family tradition of tea, emphasizing that coffee, in turn, is not so good for the body. In turn, the man decided to tell that the most popular drink among sorcerers is black and strong coffee, without which the day in the Tower of Sorcery does not begin. With a slight smile, the girl said that surely all wizards love coffee, remembering that her daughter was also madly in love with this drink, which cheered her up every night. Sir Raft was really surprised by what he heard, and curiously asked if there were any familiar wizards around Lady Riken, as she clearly had someone in mind when she said the previous thing. Realizing that the girl had said something superfluous, Lady Riken quickly changed the subject and suggested that they warm themselves with drinks and return to the shop quickly, so as not to anger Miss Rode. After receiving her order, the girl saw a very cute pattern on the coffee and immediately moved to her past, remembering how her daughter also tried to reproduce such patterns. Sir Raft could not understand what was so constantly worrying the girl, who again and again lost herself in her thoughts, not paying attention to her husband. After asking Riken about it, the latter simply apologized. Carefully examining Lady Riken, the man tried to catch her gaze, but he was always directed somewhere in the distance and was filled with a stream of different thoughts, and certainly not about Sturmel. Lady Riken felt somewhat embarrassed, as she was constantly distracted from the conversation with the man who was trying so persistently to attract attention and become a really interesting conversationalist. Touching the girl's hand, Sir Raft felt something incredibly ardent and hot inside him, despite the cold hand of the lady. The man realized exactly what he felt about Riken. The sincere smile that was at the beginning of that incredible day quickly disappeared from the sire's face. The sadness of the Raft was due to the fact that Lady Riken did not focus at all on communicating with him. Looking at the girl, Sir Raft emphasized that his attitude towards her was not just kindness. The man added that he is not one of those people who will waste his time on those who are not at all interesting to him. After hearing this, Lady Riken could not say a word because she was perplexed by what she heard. Her face clearly expressed emotions of total excitement and not understanding her husband's further actions. Instead, Sir Raft, in a calm voice, said that he intended to do more than just befriend Lady Riken, telling her that he was very interested in the person of Lady Copeland. Lady Reichen was indeed surprised and confused to hear Sir Sturmel's confession, and, not knowing how best to act in this situation, suggested that the man return to Kartal's shop. In her past life, Reichen also met some potential brides, but everyone understood very well that it was the father who would decide who his only daughter, whom he loved and adored, would marry. However, after getting a chance to reincarnate, Reichen also received a new name of a potential groom, and this began to worry the girl, despite the fact that she felt quite strong feelings for the man. Reichen did not understand whether she would have the strength to radically change her fate, and at the same time not lose the chance to meet her daughter again. In the end, the girl decided to end the story with Raft. The girl really wanted to be much braver than before, but she didn't even imagine that she could go this far. Reichen believed that she could harm her daughter and Harold with her feelings. Reichen's incessant flow of thoughts about her past and future was interrupted by a visit from her maid, Penny, who informed her that a guest had arrived. Lady Copeland asked who had come. Looking surprised at Reichen, Penny informed that the artist Rodrigo had arrived, whom Lady Copeland herself had invited yesterday, having bought his works on Enzola Street. The girl immediately remembered her invitation from yesterday and asked Penny to take Rodrigo to the living room and treat her to delicious food and drink, while Lady Reichen gathered her thoughts and snuggled up. Meanwhile, Rodrigo could not find a place for himself, as he did not understand how such a respectable and wealthy lady paid attention to his works, which, in the boy's opinion, did not fit into the aristocratic interior at all. As Lady Reichen had ordered, Penny had brought Rodrigo delicious snacks, various sweets, and hot drinks, so that he could eat and rest while he waited for Lady Copeland's visit. Rodrigo was very surprised by such a nice gesture from the girl, considering her very caring and considerate, and gladly accepted all the treats, since he had been very hungry lately due to lack of funds. Rodrigo's meal was interrupted by a visit to Lady Reichen's drawing room. Seeing her, of course, the boy was very embarrassed, and with a tremor in his voice, said his name, greeted the girl, and expressed his gratitude for the invitation. Lady Reichen looked very gently and kindly at the boy, and also introduced herself to him, offering to sit down at the table and discuss his latest works and prospects for the future. Sitting next to Rodrigo, Reichen told the boy that she would like to sponsor him, as she saw in him a real talent, thirst, and knack for art. The boy was incredibly surprised by what he heard. Rodrigo really did not understand what could touch and attract Lady Reichen in his works, and he was sure that he was not worthy of such financial support and colossal trust from a wealthy girl. The girl, reassuring the boy, said that she really liked such works, regardless of how and where they are depicted. In addition, Reichen said that the boy should trust her expert opinion. Looking into Rodrigo's eyes, Reichen said that looking at his paintings, she felt in them an incredible technique and emotions that could not be depicted without an innate, incredible talent. The young man, hearing this, was rather puzzled and did not understand why the young lady liked his work so much, and why she praised him so much, because he considered himself completely ordinary. Instead, Lady Reichen continued to talk about further funding, noting that she intended to invest all of her pocket money in developing Rodrigo's talent, buying him everything he needed. Lady Reichen emphasized that the boy would be able to buy everything he needed from Kartal's shop on Enzola Street, and if Rodrigo needed anything, he could buy it by writing down the name Reichen. Rodrigo was infinitely moved and impressed by such kindness of the girl, promising her that for the sake of Lady Copeland, he would definitely create an incredible masterpiece that would be known to the whole world. The boy wanted to thank the girl very much and asked how he could do it, to which Reichen said that Rodrigo, becoming a world-famous artist, would consider Lady Copeland his first sponsor. After meeting with Rodrigo, Lady Reichen immediately created a contract with the shop and asked the butler to give it to Mr. Kartal to sign and allow the young artist to develop. Returning to her room, Reichen began to do her business, and suddenly her father, Viscount Copeland, who already knew about his daughter's interesting decisions regarding Rodrigo, came to visit her. Reichen's father witnessed how the girl placed her new painting on the wall. It was a special work that Rodrigo created for Reichen as a sign of his infinite gratitude for the care and faith shown in him. Looking at this incredible work, Evening Star, Reichen thought that it was a rather expensive gift in return for her help, so she wanted to return it to Rodrigo. However, Penny convinced Reichen not to return the work, as such a gesture would most likely only serve to depress the young artist, as his works were not selling well and had no demand. The Viscount did not like this picture, as he was used to seeing completely different works in his house, but Riken assured that these colors reflected in the picture were incredible and fit perfectly into the interior. After listening to his daughter, the Viscount gave permission to hang this picture, saying that he was somewhat surprised by Lady Riken's decision to sponsor a completely unknown artist. And although Mr. Copeland was surprised, at the same time he was very proud of his daughter, because few people her age thought about such things. Wanting to discuss one more topic, the Viscount proposed to have tea together. Rachel was incredibly happy to hear such an offer from her father, as she spent very little time with him, so she gladly agreed, offering to make tea for them. Not losing an opportunity, the Viscount wanted to ask about his daughter's last meeting with Sir Sturl. Instead, Riken said the man was very nice and the walk was great overall. The Viscount, hearing this from his daughter, was surprised, as he had not thought Sir Raft so kind, but his father's heart told Mr. Copeland that Riken should see no more of Sturl. Sir Raft is a very strong sorcerer who possessed the powerful elements, water and air, which greatly worried Riken's father, as he considered Sturl to be, in truth, a very dangerous person. Riken suddenly began to show an infinite curiosity about Mr. Copeland's acquaintance with Sir Sturl, as neither her mother's family nor her father's family were intimately acquainted with the Raft family. After hearing this question, Mr. Copeland really thought about the fact that his daughter has already grown up a lot and has become wise enough, analyzing everything that is happening around and asking interesting questions. Mr. Copeland still decided to tell his daughter about meeting Sir Raft, remembering all the details of the event 3 years ago. It all started with a tragedy in the village of Orpenda, where the dam was destroyed. Copeland's friend, Kaiden, who was the head of that village, asked Father Riken to urgently find a sorcerer who would possess water magic and be able to save the village from a large-scale disaster. The Viscount even personally turned to the Tower of Magic with a request for a sorcerer who could help solve the matter, but no one possessed such skills and could not help the situation. A representative of the Tower of Sorcery suggested that Mr. Copeland should personally address Sir Sturl, who in his time had completed the academy with flying colors and had become a water lord at a very young age. Mr. Copeland was very worried about meeting such a powerful sorcerer, because if he refused, the man would have to quickly and efficiently find another way to help Orpendi. However, the man's worries were all for naught, as Sir Raft happily agreed to meet Mr. Copeland pretty quickly and immediately offered to go to Orpenda. Mr. Copeland was very surprised that the young man was so concerned about the problems of this village and asked if Raft did not need time to thoroughly prepare for this mission. However, Mr. Raft assured that the water could not harm him in any way, so they immediately went to the village and saved Orpenda from a supernatural disaster, thanks to Sturl's charms. After listening to the story of Sturl's acquaintance with her father, Riken was really impressed by the dedication and courage of Sir Raft, who showed himself very courageously, like a real man. Father Riken, smiling, once again emphasized that although they were acquainted with Sir Raft, they were not at all close to each other, adding that Sturl was indeed an outstanding and very noble person. Turning her head away from her father's eyes, Lady Riken wondered how one and the same person could be so empathetic and at the same time could so carefully hide their own emotions and feelings. Suddenly, Father Riken puzzled the girl in one moment, saying that he had nothing at all against Sturl's candidacy as a groom for Lady Copeland if he really made her happy. Continuing, Copeland noted that Riken's mother, of course, would not approve of such a candidacy, but her daughter's happiness is a priority for him. The girl was extremely confused by what she heard, and she did not know what to say. Looking sternly at Riken, Viscount Copeland emphasized that Sturl should always worry about the girl and their future family, and Riken, in turn, tried to convince that there was no relationship between them. In the midst of the discussion between Riken and her father, Miss Rode came into the room carrying an envelope containing a letter for Lady Copeland. Most likely this message was from Sir Sturl himself. As she opened the envelope, Rachen's heart began to beat at an incredible speed, making the girl forget, for a moment, all her troubles and problems, as all her thoughts were on Sir Raft. After opening the envelope, lavender petals flew out of it with a magical wave, which began to circle above the girl, creating a real vortex around her graceful figure, mesmerizing everyone around. Sir Raft really tried very hard that time to impress the girl with every well-chosen word in the letter. In addition, the man invited Rachen to another meeting, to the Sorcerer's Tower. The girl read this letter again and again, holding her breath. Riken could not realize that such a strict man at first sight could be so romantic and considerate. However, Miss Rode did not share Lady Copeland's joy, insisting that Riken must get permission from his parents to go to the wizard's tower to meet with Sir Raft. Penny, in turn, was in awe of what she saw and heard and wanted to help Riken in every possible way, offering massages and face masks to make the girl look perfect. Riken, seeing Penny's eyes full of love, decided to inquire about her personal life. Instead, the maid replied that she really had a potential fiancé whom she had met recently. Penny shared with Riken that her lover is an ordinary man who delivers fruits and vegetables for the Copeland family estate. Riken was sure it was a young man, the same age as Penny, but Penny, a little embarrassed, said that her husband was a little older than her. And everything fell into place in Riken's head. She realized that her friend's chosen one is the one who will destroy her life. In the same year, when Riken married Harold, her friend Penny suddenly quit her job and left the city together with her new husband, about whom no one knew anything. And only after 20 years, Riken learned at least some information about Penny from Miss Rode, but no one knew anything concrete about the details of the girl's chosen one and how her life turned out. But Riken was always sure of one thing. Penny never wanted to quit and leave the Copeland family estate, so Riken always wanted to know what really made the girl make such a choice. Realizing that Penny is currently dating the very person who may destroy her life in the future, Riken began to consider whether she should prevent this and save her friend. Penny, looking at Riken, could not understand what the matter was, and why Lady Copeland felt quite worried, assuming that the worries were due to the age difference between Penny and her chosen one. Riken pondered how she could help Penny and decided to start with the head maid who had introduced her friend to this man to find out who the man really was. Pretending that Riken was no longer bothered by anything, the girl asked Penny to prepare everything she needed for cosmetic procedures, so that as follows, she would prepare for the meeting with Sir Raft. Looking at Penny's eyes, which were burning with enthusiasm, Riken wanted even more to help the girl feel happy forever, deciding to learn as much information as possible about her future husband. Having prepared all the necessary equipment for cosmetic procedures, Penny decided to start with a massage to tone her face, with the aim of making Riken even more youthful and attractive. Riken, feeling a real rush of youth to every cell of her body, asked to stop this massage, because in some places the girl even hurt a little. Instead, Penny was full of energy to continue the day of beauty, so she invited Riken to fix her hair, as the girl had learned a great way to take care of it from the maids. Penny shared her beauty secret with Riken and said that before combing her hair, it is necessary to apply a few drops of aromatic oil which will soften it and make it more. And although Lady Copeland did not need this care at all, she could not refuse Penny because looking at her, she remembered her carefree daughter, who was always full of similar ideas. That same night, Lady Copeland could not sleep, and going to the table, took the envelope which Sir Raft had sent her. The leaf still had a rather pleasant aroma of lavender, which the girl liked so much. Remembering her past, Lady Riken also thought about Sir Raft, who had a rather cold relationship with his wife, although of course he respected her very much and was always polite to her. Some said that his wife was unable to fill his heart. Others said that Sir Raft was not interested in women at all. No one knew the truth, but it was known that he never got close to anyone. Knowing Sir Raft's character from the past, Lady Riken was surprised at how kind and considerate he was towards the girl, so she decided to reply to his letter immediately, so as not to make him wait. By the next morning, Lady Riken's letter had already been delivered to Sir Sturl. The man was very much waiting for a response to his invitation, so he wanted to open the envelope as soon as possible to read the text. However, his plans were interrupted by the visit of one guest whom Sir Sturl did not expect to see in his house that day. Frankly, Sir Raft didn't want to see anyone at all. A middle-aged man visited him. As it turned out, he was a representative of the Emperor himself, who wanted to discuss an important topic with Sir Sturl alone, without extra eyes and ears. Sir Raft was quite surprised by such an unplanned and somewhat brazen visit, but Sturl was really curious about the reason for such a distinguished guest's arrival, so he asked in a calm voice what exactly the man wanted. Instead, the man, thrusting his hand into his jacket pocket, said that he had been ordered by the Emperor himself to hand Sir Raft a valuable gift, namely a precious brooch, holding it out. Adding that this piece of jewelry is encrusted with a very rare blue diamond, the man noted that this brooch was purchased at an unheard-of cost, thus emphasizing the importance of this gesture. Sir Raft, having received such a gift, did not at all understand what exactly prompted the Emperor to make such a costly gift for him, to which the representative said that His Majesty was worried about Sturl. Hearing this made Sir Sturl very angry, as the Emperor definitely needed something from a man, and he would never have bothered about an illegitimate child of the Raft family just like that. The man was really angry as he realized that His Majesty would never have sent such a gift if Raft had not become the Lord of the Wizard's Tower and achieved such success. Saying that he did not need any gifts from the Emperor, Sir Sturl asked him to take this gift and not to bother the man anymore with such unexpected visits. Finally, the long-awaited day came when Lady Recjen and Sir Raft were able to decide on the date of the next meeting, which was to take place in the Wizard's Tower, in the academy where the girl studied. Lady Recjen was already familiar with this place, as in her past life she had repeatedly come to the tower with her daughter for a tour, so it did not seem so impressive to her. Approaching the academy, Lady Recjen, always accompanied by Miss Rode, saw Sir Sturl together with his student, the water wizard, Gerald Maximo, who were infinitely happy to see the guests. Having greeted Lady Recjen, Gerald, not holding back his delight at the girl's beauty, finally understood who was able to melt the icy heart of his talented mentor and teacher. Sturl, having remarked to the boy about his sneakiness, asked Lady Recjen not to pay attention to Gerald. In turn, the girl said that there were absolutely no complaints. While walking around the academy grounds, the man said that everything was already prepared in the garden for the creation of a magical tool, but first he invited the guests to a tour of the Sorcerer's Tower. Due to the use of spatial magic, the tower looked much taller than normal buildings. The path to the heart of magic in the kingdom was inaccessible to common people and even some wizards. Approaching the tower, a magical staircase appeared, which was created only out of thin air. Sensing the girl's anxiety, Raft assured her that with him she could not worry about her safety. Ascending the magical stairs, Raft informed the girl that no one but him moves through the tower in this way, as each wizard has his own unique path and magical method. Lady Recjen was very interested in this mode of transportation, and she wanted to know more about it until suddenly she noticed that Miss Rode and Mr. Gerald were not with them, which greatly disturbed the girl. The girl was very worried that Gerald and Miss Rode might get lost, but Raft assured the girl that his apprentice was an experienced wizard and could not make any mistakes while moving around the tower. After contacting Gerald, Sir Raft learned that they were in the Room of Infinite Mirrors, a place where wizards of light and darkness practiced. Once there, it takes 2 hours to leave the room. Although Gerald was a water wizard, he knew about this room. Sir Raft realized that the boy had done this on purpose to give Sturl and Lady Recjen a chance to be alone. Realizing that Miss Rode was safe with Gerald, Lady Recjen calmed down and suggested that Sir Raft continue the tour so that they could have a good time together. Sir Raft, looking at Lady Recjen, said in a gentle voice that he even felt joy from the fact that such a situation had developed, since he would be able to be with the girl alone without extra ears. During the conversation, Sir Raft inquired about Lady Recjen's latest act, namely sponsoring the unknown artist Rodrigo. The girl, with delight, began to tell about it. Although Rodrigo's works were sold for nothing, the girl saw incredible potential in this artist. What was the value of his last painting, which he gave to Lady Copeland? The girl, describing in detail all the emotions that Rodrigo's works evoked, inquired about the painting that struck Sir Raft, which he mentioned earlier. This work was written by a beginner artist. Last year, Sir Raft had the opportunity to visit the exhibition of the drawing club of the Academy, and there he found a picture that greatly impressed him and which he wanted to buy. This picture was really incredible and struck at the first sight in the very heart of the man. It featured flowers of an extraordinary color that Sir Sturl had never seen before. Lady Recjen's surprise knew no bounds as she realized that it was her painting, and when she was offered to sell this work, she refused as she was not sure about the work. But the fact that someone wanted to buy this painting made Lady Recjen feel incredibly proud. After learning that Raft became a real admirer of her work, the girl could not believe it. Asking for permission to take Lady Recjen's waist with his hand, the man informed them that a powerful leap was necessary in order to reach the place they wanted. Although Lady Recjen was a bit worried because she had never had such an experience, she trusted the man completely, and in an instant, with the help of a stream of magic, they began to move through space. This journey took about a few seconds, although it took an eternity for Recjen. Once in the corridor of the starry sky, the girl asked when they would be able to get to the garden of the Sorcerer's Tower. Sir Sturl, opening one of the doors of the corridor, led the girl behind him into the forest, calling it the best place for water wizards, as it was here that they could practice a lot. The man told Lady Reichen that this forest was originally in southern Elde, but later a part of it was blocked off and a passage was made to the tower so that wizards would have free access to it. Admiring every centimeter of this beautiful forest, the girl could not hide her emotions of complete delight because this place was truly incredible, energetically strong and powerful. Approaching the lake, Sir Raft announced that this is where they would create the magical tool, as a lot of clean water was needed, and this place was best suited for the action the man had planned. The man chose the forest because he needed a large amount of liquid, and he could not use such volumes in the city, since people could be left without water at all, which Raft could not allow. Taking the paint in his hands, Sir Raft began the magical action. He could not take his eyes off the incessant flow of water, which rapidly began to gather momentum, turning into a real whirlwind. Lady Reichen was very impressed with such amazing magical abilities, as she had never seen anything like it before. She was very surprised at how much water Sir Sturl was able to obtain with his charms. After completing all the magical actions, Sir Raft held in his palm a purple-colored gem that he created only from the pure water of the lake and the normal paint that he purchased from Carthal's shop. Lady Reichen could not believe her own eyes, and asked to hold this stone in her hands. The girl was very surprised and pleasantly surprised by such powerful abilities of Sir Sturl. The girl decided to express her admiration and told the man that in her opinion, ordinary wizards are not capable of such amazing magical transformations, so Sir Raft is indeed a talented and outstanding wizard. However, Sir Raft was rather shy and said that it was nothing special, and this act was so effective because he used magic inside the tower. The man noted that it is not so difficult to put magic into practice. According to Sir Sturl, what is most necessary for wizards is the thorough training and basic knowledge of charms that can be acquired during training. Usually outside of the tower, a talent was when a wizard could use his magic, even with very little training, having almost no magical paraphernalia with him. Reichen was quite surprised when she heard that in order to use magic without training special abilities, the amount of mana, magical energy, resourcefulness, and the ability to quickly learn everything are important. However, the man was still convinced that every sorcerer should think through everything in detail and carefully prepare for magical actions in order to do everything perfectly and safely for others. The sorcerer's tower is an isolated place, which is why every variable could be adjusted here, and after saying this, Sir Raft began to show Lady Reichen his other magical abilities to surprise and impress the girl. Lady Reichen said that before meeting her husband, magic seemed to her completely incomprehensible and difficult, but after listening to Sir Raft, it turned out to be very interesting and exciting for the girl. Suddenly a gust of wind became so strong that it almost blew the hat off Lady Reichen's head, but Sir Raft reacted quickly enough to prevent it by gently adjusting the girl's headdress. Immediately afterwards, Lady Reichen and Sir Raft spotted the snake, which was a message from Gerald, who reminded Sturl that it was time to end the rendezvous and return to the office. Gerald could no longer contain Miss Rhodes' anger at the situation, which is why he insisted that Reichen and Raft return to the wizard's tower as soon as possible, so as not to anger the maid even more. Sir Raft decided to finish his walk in the forest and return to the office anyway. Hearing this, Lady Reichen became very interested, as she had never been to such a place before, and was very curious about it. After looking at the girl, the man said in a gentle voice that he had already asked her to address him simply as Ster, as he considered her a close enough person who was allowed to do so. Lady Reichen, hearing this, felt somewhat embarrassed, as she was incredibly pleased that the man considered her not the last person in his life, since he allowed himself to be addressed in this way. After that, the meetings between Reichen and Raft naturally became more frequent. They saw each other almost every week. Sturl's student Gerald even prepared a list of interesting and beautiful places that the couple needed. Since Sturl spent most of his free time in the wizard's tower, he was a bit worried about these meetings with Reichen, as he wasn't sure he could accompany her properly. However, all fears, fortunately, were not justified, and Sir Raft met with Reichen again. Remembering the day of the tower, Lady Copeland inquired about the man's distressed appearance at that moment. Sir Raft decided to tell everything to the girl, remembering the moment when he was visited by a representative of the Emperor himself with a precious gift. Although throughout his life he did not even pretend to know the Raft family. However, when the Emperor learned that Sturl had become the Lord of the Wizard's Tower and had achieved such success, he showed his attention and concern for him, which at that time Sir Raft did not need at all. After listening to his story, Lady Riken showed incredible compassion and said that she was unlikely to be able to help the man in any way, but promised that she would always be able to listen to him. Later, Lady Riken began reading through the long list Gerald had compiled for them, and was truly amazed at the number of interesting places they could go with Sir Raft. However, Sturl noted that that time was not the best period for walking, and, in his opinion, there was no place worth going to so late in autumn, when the weather was not very pleasant. But Riken offered to choose from a list of places to visit next spring, to which Sir Raft replied that he had already planned interesting dates and social events for them. Sadness and disappointment filled the girl's thoughts. She could not find a place for herself, as she was constantly wondering whether she was on the right path and whether she would find true happiness in the end. On the one hand, she felt mad feelings of love for Sir Raft, and she couldn't do anything about it, and on the other hand, Lady Riken understood that she had a daughter, and she had to meet her. After looking at the picture that Sturl liked so much, Lady Copeland was already considering how she would give it as a parting gift, but she still left this idea without a decision. There were two important levers on the scales of Riken's fate, the love of her life and her own daughter. At that moment, the girl really wanted the advice of a loved one, but, unfortunately, she could not tell anyone about the secret. Her maid, Penny, came into the room where Riken was, who was able to momentarily tear the girl away from the incessant flow of thoughts, stressing that it was time to go home in order to be in time for the next social meeting. Riken, having completed all her work in the workshop, asked Penny to carry one of her paintings to the carriage, since it had long been painted and ready. It was a canvas with those purple flowers. Penny inquired about the social event Lady Riken was going to, as she had planned to stop by the house to change. This could mean only one thing. The event was really important. As it turned out, Riken was going to Polana's tea ceremony. Penny, looking at the lady with a surprised look, asked how Sturl would react to this, since men would also be present at this event. Copeland, of course, reiterated that she and Sir Raft were not a couple, and added that it would be a normal tea party, so there was nothing to worry about. In turn, Riken asked Penny about her relationship. Penny has previously talked about her crush on a man who is a supplier of fruit and vegetables to the Copeland family estate. From the words of the maid, it was clear that there were really strong feelings between them. Riken was indeed surprised to hear that the man was kind to Penny, for Lady Copeland was already aware of the subsequent unfortunate fate of the couple, but of course she gave no hint of it. Riken only emphasized that, in case of any problems, Penny could always turn to Lady Copeland for help or advice. The maid was really impressed with such care for her. The tea ceremony at Polana's house was organized by her sister, Olivia Edgen, who was known for her cold-bloodedness and unfriendliness. Therefore, Rachel did not really understand the motives of inviting her to this event. Approaching the estate, Rachel saw a smiling Polana, who was happy to meet her friend. After greeting Lady Copeland, Polana invited them to join the tea ceremony that was taking place in the drawing room. Once in the living room, Riken noticed that her close friends were not among the guests, but Lady Wayne was present, whom Copeland had not expected to see at this meeting. However, Riken didn't want to appear worried and agitated by Wayne's presence, so she greeted Viscountess Egan sweetly and kindly, expressing her gratitude for being invited to this event. Olivia Egan was surprised by such a greeting, as her sister was quite a close friend to Rachel, so she did not expect the kind of subordination that was shown by the girl. Suddenly, Lady Wayne invited Riken to the table, saying that very tasty treats were already waiting for the girl. Riken was surprised by the Countess's sudden kindness. Filling her porcelain cups with aromatic black tea, Riken turned to the girls and asked if she had missed anything interesting since she was a bit late for this social event. Wayne, after asking if Lady Riken was treating the interesting news as gossip, began to talk about a recent story circulating around town regarding the Empress and her suffering. After hearing about the Empress's suffering, Lady Riken decided to find out exactly what had happened to her, to which Wayne replied that she had been very ill for several months, but this information was secret. This information is being withheld as Empress Azaria's coming-of-age ceremony is coming up very soon, and if all goes well, she will be able to inherit the throne, so this is a very important time. Riken felt quite strong sympathy for Empress Rosolda and her problems, but still noted that she could not hide the fact of the disease, since many people already knew about it. However, Wayne noted that the disease is not very serious. In her opinion, the Empress was very tired, which is why the internal management of the palace was entrusted to Miss Damon, while Her Majesty rested. and although the Empress's health has always been difficult, everyone hoped for her speedy recovery, as the best doctors of Elda monitor her condition and provide the necessary medical assistance if necessary. Only Recjen, among all the girls in the room, knew exactly what would happen in the future, as she had seen everything with her own eyes in a past life. During the year, the Empress's condition improved and worsened. However, in the end she died, and after 8 months His Majesty appointed as the new Empress Lady Syrianel, the mother of Sir Sturl, which became a great pleasant surprise for all the inhabitants of the kingdom. This diplomatic move was made in order to restore Sir Sturl's title in time for the future Empress Izaria's coming-of-age ceremony. The Emperor's remarriage to Lady Syrianel, the new title that Sir Raft received, coincided with Izaria's coming-of-age ceremony, which is why the whole country was filled with an atmosphere of true celebration. At the time, Lady Recjen was quite young and lacked the experience to understand the gravity of the situation, as she was only focused on seeing her first love, Sir Raft, become a duke. However, everything has changed. After Rebirth, Recjen will never be that naive and very young girl who does not understand anything in life. She is a wise and experienced woman who realizes everything. Recjen could finally understand the Empress who had been so far away from her in the past. Lady Copeland finally realized that the woman's real problems were with her mental health. At the time, when Rosolda married His Majesty, she did not even suspect his relationship with Lady Syrianel, much less the presence of an illegitimate child, Sturl. Empress Rosolda found out about the existence of Syrianel's son only a year after the birth of her daughter, Princess Izoria. These gossips reached her from everywhere, and she did not know how to react and what to do. Instead, Syrianel kept saying that her son had no father, and insisted that she was raising him on her own. But the truth came out, and Rosolda wanted to meet Miss Raft. Having written a letter to Syrianel, the Empress expected a positive response to her invitation, but instead received a refusal. Miss Raft was certain that she had tarnished the honor of her family. That is why Syrianel did not go out into secular society, and even more so, did not get close to the Empress. This woman is full of dignity and self-respect, and she tried to avoid hatred from Rosolda. Due to diplomatic relations, Empress Rosolda, who was a princess in the past, had no right to openly criticize His Majesty for whatever reason, which is why she kept everything to herself. Due to the fact that for many years the Empress kept all feelings of hatred and hostility inside her, as she had no close people, she fell ill, which eventually led to the inevitable death of the woman. Remembering all these details, Recjen couldn't understand why the world was so unfair, why only those who were abandoned suffered, and not those who really made a big mistake in their life and hurt others. Suddenly, Lady Wayne wondered why Sir Sturl had not told anything about this news to Lady Recjen. By asking this, Wayne wanted to know exactly what was going on in the relationship between Raft and Copeland. Instead, Recjen replied that Raft is not the kind of person who should talk about such details of the life of the Imperial family, although the girl herself understood why she did not learn anything from her husband. Sir Raft wanted nothing to do with the Imperial family at all. He wanted absolutely no title, no power, no recognition of His Majesty. He only wanted to be a happy person and a good wizard. Suddenly, Olivia stood up from her seat with delight, seeing someone. Finally, the invited young men arrived at the Edgen estate, who happily joined the tea party with respectable and wealthy young ladies. Olivia's husband noted that there was a rather friendly atmosphere in the living room, which had not been there for a long time, saying that the girls, at first glance, were having a very good time. Suddenly, among the men present, Recjen saw Harold. Not believing her eyes, Copeland came closer to him and said his name, which surprised the man, because he did not remember the girl at all. Realizing that she had said too much, Recjen immediately corrected the situation and said that they had met in Baron Roland's house. This was a good option, since this man always received guests. Lady Copeland immediately introduced herself to the man, who was somewhat confused by the situation that had arisen. But immediately, collecting his thoughts, Harold greeted the girl with all the formalities. In her past life, Recjen met Harold much later, a few months after her graduation, when the girl turned 20. Lady Copeland was puzzled, not understanding why everything was wrong. At the height of social debate, Recjen decided to return to her estate. Polana was of course confused by this, asking if Lady Copeland was all right. However, the girl said that she was just tired. Assuring that everything is fine with her well-being, Recjen got into the carriage and went to her estate. On the way home, Lady Copeland could not understand why Harold could not remember anything. In his eyes, she saw absolute indifference towards her, and his face only showed demonstrative politeness, which was necessary when communicating with respectable people at this event. The girl was in despair. She could not stop her tears, which rolled from her eyes like cold autumn rain. Having lived 20 years of married life, she did not expect such drastic changes. And there was only one question in Reichen's mind: how to do everything right to meet his dear daughter. This was the girl's greatest fear, as her child was the meaning of Copeland's whole life. Returning to her native estate, the girl was met by a butler who informed her that a guest had come to her, namely Sir Sturl, who had been waiting for the girl in the room for music practice for 3 hours. This really surprised the girl, because Sturl was not the kind of person who came to visit unexpectedly and without warning. The girl understood that she had no right to refuse a meeting with her husband. Entering the room, Reichen saw Sir Sturl standing in front of the same painting with purple flowers and carefully examining it, admiring every centimeter of the canvas of this amazing creation. Seeing that Reichen had entered the room, Sir Sturl greeted the girl and said that this was the very picture that had pleased the man, and about which he had told Lady Copeland during the last meeting. Reichen was somewhat embarrassed to hear yet another very nice word about her work, and expressed her gratitude for the interest shown in her work. The girl has never received so many compliments. The man always liked something special and unusual, and the color of these flowers was really unique, which struck the very heart of Sir Sturl. After this canvas, Raft could not look at other paintings. The girl decided to inquire about the unexpected visit of her husband, to which Raft informed her that he had arrived for a business meeting with the Viscount, and now decided to see Lady Reichen, as there was an important topic to discuss. Later, Raft said that he plans to return home very soon and they will not be able to see the girl for some time. In addition, Sir Sturl noted that he needed to meet with his mother. Raft's situation was known to Reichen only in general terms, but most likely, at that moment, the man was in a very confusing situation. Sir Sturl had already known about the Empress's illness for several months. Reichen understood that, most likely, Sir Sturl already knew that the Empress had long since weakened and was pondering what the future would be for his family, and for him in particular. Before meeting Lady Reichen, Sir Sturl was going to live his life in general, without burdening him with relationships with various people, let alone romantic relationships, and this was the best option for a man. The man did not want to show his fear in front of the Imperial family, so when his mother suggested that he leave the capital and return home, he did not listen to her. Sir Raft was creating his own reality. Lady Sirianel always assured Raft that he must stay with her in his native house, as she feared for evil and unpleasant words in his direction regarding his ignoble origin. However, the man did not want to run away from these problems and leave the capital only because of the evil tongues of those around him. He was confident in his abilities and always knew that he would be able to protect himself and his family no matter what. Sturl did not want to repeat the fate of his mother, who in her time left secular society, avoided any meetings with the Imperial family, thus preserving her nobility and dignity. Raft assured his mother that he wanted to change the methods used by Sirianel in his time and intended to prove himself and achieve success and respect in the world, and without the help of the Imperial family. Sir Sturl understood that he was an illegitimate child and had no father, so he could not be an aristocrat, but at the same time, he was not a common man, so he had no country to belong to. Even from early childhood, Sturl developed an aversion to this world and a feeling of hatred for others. The blood in his veins constantly tried to lead him down the wrong path of life. All his life he sought to prove that he was really worthy of something. But at the same time, he never thought of receiving a title and becoming closer to the Imperial family, which he despised for personal reasons. That is why the man chose seclusion for himself and spent almost all his time in the Sorcerer's Tower, not paying attention to anyone. He simply lived alone, closing himself in a room and plunging into the world of magic. However, from the moment he met Lady Reichen, his life turned upside down and took on new colors. A completely different world, which he longed for, began to take shape in his head. He dreamed of ordinary earthly things: his house, a greenhouse with flowers, a garden full of trees, children's laughter, and a loving wife, whose hand he would hold all his life, never taking his eyes off her. On his way appeared exactly the one whom he wanted to possess, whom he wanted to be inspired by, and whom he wanted to live with. Lady Reichen managed to melt Sturl's icy heart, changing his reality. Not even a few months have passed since Sir Sturmel was acquainted with Lady Reichen, but the deep wounds that seemed incurable to the man began to linger little by little, thanks to the presence of Lady Copeland in his life. Looking at such a sunny Lady Reichen, the man's cold heart was filled with something warm and pleasant, which warmed him in the cold autumn days and gave him the strength to live his best life. Collecting his thoughts and gathering all his courage, Sir Sturmel decided to talk to Lady Reichen's father, confessing to him his feelings and serious intentions for the girl who had captured his heart. Viscount Copeland knew very well that this day would come, but he was very worried that the recognition and burden of the past that Sir Sturmel had could only bring trouble and not make his daughter happy. The Viscount was of course aware of Sir Raft's background and his current status in society, but Mr. Copeland never interfered in his daughter's private life, but only watched him closely. And although Raft's personal qualities inspired the Viscount's trust, he still understood that Sturmel was not a suitable candidate for his daughter, as everyone knew that Sir Raft was not a simple person. Instead, his daughter, Lady Reichen, had her place in society and her environment, which, according to her father, the illegitimate son of the Raft family, Sir Sturmel, should not have entered. Viscount Copeland believed that the man was not in the best position at that moment, and no matter how strong the feelings were between the couple, Reichen's father could not allow their joint union for the sake of his daughter's future. Mr. Copeland was sure that even if Sir Raft received a new title, he would still bring only problems and troubles to the Copeland and Reichen families in particular. The Copeland family was quite ordinary. No one in this family possessed powerful magical power and did not have huge fortunes to show off among the wealthy people of the kingdom. And Sir Sturmel, in turn, having received the title of Duke, will not be equal in status to the Copeland family at all, and will only bring misfortune to Reichen, according to the Viscount. However, Sir Raft assured that he would solve this problem. Hearing this, Viscount Copeland was really impressed by the stubbornness and tenacity of the man, and clearly understood that Sturmel, in truth, had strong feelings for his daughter and was quite serious. Looking into Reichen's eyes, Sir Sturmel could not contain his sincere admiration for the girl. The man wanted to discuss a very important subject with Lady Copeland after his return from a business trip. At that moment, Reichen couldn't believe her ears and began to wonder what exactly Sir Raft wanted to discuss with her, deciding that he probably intended to confess his feelings. The girl's heart was torn into small pieces because she really loved Sir Raft, but even more she loved her daughter and didn't understand what fate would happen to her if Reichen chose his feelings. Thinking about this, the girl's bottomless eyes immediately filled with bitter tears, which she could not hold back, and they began to flow rapidly down her face, burning her cheeks. Sir Sturmel could not understand what had made Lady Reichen cry, thinking that his words had put the girl in a difficult position, but Lady Copeland denied it, wiping bitter tears from her face. The man, having gently touched her cheek with his palm, could not take his eyes off her for a moment, and suddenly his brain completely shut down, and his heart, gaining power, forced the man not to hide his feelings anymore. Their kiss was so passionate and so tender at the same time, they couldn't tear themselves away from each other. Reichen's sweet lips, despite the taste of bitter tears, immediately filled the man's heart and mind even more. Hearing bitter cries, the anxious maid, Penny, entered the room where Lady Copeland was, with the purpose of inquiring into the cause which had led to the condition of the girl, and offering her support. Reichen asked not to worry about her, and asked the maid to leave Lady Copeland alone with her thoughts, without others present in the room. Silence and peace were very necessary for the girl. The evening came, but the girl did not get up from the place where she spent her last few hours, in the captivity of numerous thoughts. Reichen's mother came into the room bringing dinner for her daughter. Sitting down next to Reichen and gently taking her hand, Miss Copeland insisted that the girl eat dinner anyway, so that her daughter could feel more energetic and full of strength the next morning. Rejoicing that Reichen was slowly coming to her senses, Miss Copeland asked the girl if she had enjoyed the dinner she had personally prepared for her daughter, into which she had poured all her motherly love and care. Reichen was really touched by her mother's gesture, remembering how in her past she, too, quite often cooked and brought food and various sweets for her daughter to her room, showing care. And when her daughter got a little older, she herself began to cook and bring food for Reichen, which could not but please the young mother, who was infinitely happy with such a gift of fate as her little child. As it turned out, this wonderful tradition ran in the family, and Reichen inherited this habit from her mother, Miss Copeland. The memories made the girl feel anxious and a little sad inside her again. Noticing the sadness in Riken's eyes, Miss Copeland wondered if this mood had anything to do with Sir Sturmel's last visit to her. Lowering her eyes, the girl replied that she was confused in her feelings. The girl decided to share her feelings with her mother, telling her that she felt that very soon Sir Raft would propose to her and offer to marry and start a family of his own. It was known to Miss Copeland that Sir Raft came to see her husband. The woman assumed that Mr. Copeland was not against Sturmel's candidacy, as she was in general, because she believed in the potential of the young man. On the other hand, the young Lady Riken did not share her mother's genuine enthusiasm at all, saying that she had made up her mind to refuse Sir Raft if he did propose to her. Miss Copeland was really shocked by what she heard and assumed that Riken had taken such a rather unexpected decision because of her mother's recent reprimands regarding the girl's active communication with Sir Sturmel. The girl, reassuring her mother, assured that she only wanted to remember her prom, which is why she invited her husband with her to a social event. Rachel has made enough good memories with Raft. Riken, continuing to convince her mother, emphasized that the man did not suit her at all. Miss Copeland was perplexed at what she heard, for she was quite sure that her daughter liked Sir Raft very much. If everything had happened this way in her past life, Rachel would have happily immersed herself in the feelings that were between her and Raft. But the circumstances changed, and now she faced the choice of a lifetime. And no matter what happiness awaits the girl in the future, in the case of choosing love and feelings, it will never replace Riken with her daughter, who will always be in the first place for her. And the truth is, motherly love is stronger. Deciding to lead her mother to her room, Riken wondered if Miss Copeland would be able to remarry the Viscount if she had the unique opportunity to be reborn and change her destiny. In turn, Riken's mother replied that she would infinitely like her daughter to be born again, and she got the opportunity to raise her and enjoy every moment of the girl's childhood. Miss Copeland was sure that if given a second chance to raise Riken, she could give much more to her child and provide the girl with even better memories from her childhood. In addition, Miss Copeland jokingly said that she would also like to re-educate Brother Riken, who was quite naughty, to which the girl replied that he was still young and he would have a chance to take up his mind. Leaning against her mother, Lady Riken felt the incredible warmth and motherly love that the girl had so lacked in her past life. Taking Miss Copeland's hand, the girl said that she wanted to be happy. A few days later, a letter arrived at the Copland family estate from Baron Roland, who was holding a ball and inviting all the respectable ladies and gentlemen. Having received this invitation, the girls decided to choose an outfit. Miss Copeland noted that Riken had an unsurpassed sense of style and would be able to choose a great outfit for each of them, as the girl really knew about fashion trends and had some experience in it. Looking at her mother, Riken suggested that she add an umbrella and an elegant scarf to the image. Although in Miss Copeland's youth, the Oriental style was considered completely ugly, fashion has really changed. However, after trying on this look, Miss Copeland really liked her look and reflection in the mirror. Seizing the moment, she decided to ask Rachel something that had been bothering her lately. The fact was that Lady Riken had been rumored to have met Baron Hadley at the girls' last tea party, which was why Miss Copeland decided to find out if it was true, to which the lady replied affirmatively. Lady Riken told her mother that Harold Hadley seemed to her, at first sight, to be a very good and honest man, and she wished to meet him again in order to get to know him better. It was indeed an unexpected wish for Miss Copeland, but she always accepted her daughter and her aspirations, so she was ready to help the girl in arranging a meeting with Baron Harold Hadley. The girl understood that she had to act in order to achieve the desired goal. Riken knew that there was not much difference between her family and Harold's family, so she could easily marry him again. Having visited a social event at the Roland family, the girl suddenly noticed that a lot of wealthy ladies had gathered in the room, but of the young people, only she and Harold Hadley were present. Suddenly, the girl was approached by a middle-aged woman with an attractive appearance, who was dressed in an incredible dress of emerald color, decorated with lace, which emphasized the beauty of her eyes. Seeing this woman, Riken was as if petrified, because it was Harold's mother, whom the girl even feared in her past life, because of her rather strong and difficult character at the same time. Noticing a rather strange reaction to the Baroness's greeting, the woman inquired about Riken's health. As the young lady appeared to be quite fragile and vulnerable, even had a somewhat sickly appearance. The girl could not show her weakness, as she had a desire to draw the attention of the Baroness to herself and to please her. That is why, after greeting herself, she asked permission to introduce herself to the mistress of this house. Reichen walked closer to the gray-haired elderly woman who was sitting in a wheelchair. It was Baroness Roland, with whom Reichen greeted politely and began a social conversation on various topics. As you know, all women have always been interested in the topic of relationships. Therefore, seeing Reichen, a young and attractive girl, wealthy young ladies began to wonder whether she is married and whether she has suitors. Observing the dialogue between Reichen and the Baroness, the other women spoke quite favorably of the young lady who spoke respectfully to Miss Roland, maintaining the conversation in a warm, pleasant atmosphere. Those present could not take their eyes off the graceful figure of the young lady, throwing compliments one after another at her, and wondering who would get such a wonderful wife and daughter-in-law. Baroness Hadley was also generous with kind words that evening, suggesting that Reichen would be a rather submissive and dutiful daughter-in-law in the future, treating her elders with respect. However, Reichen understood that she could never truly love Baroness Hadley because she knew her true nature. The girl plunged into memories again, remembering one day from her past unhappy life. One warm and sunny day, the family gathered at the dinner table, the food for which was prepared by Reichen. The girl was very upset because of the constant reproaches of her mother-in-law on the same topic. The woman always emphasized that quite a long time had passed since the marriage of Harold and Reichen, and did not miss a single opportunity to remark about the absence of an heir. And although Reichen had already given birth to a daughter, this did not suit the Baroness at all, who wanted to get an heir to the Hadley family. The woman was sure that all the problems were only due to the girl's lack of desire. The woman always taught Harold and Reichen and gave them advice, which the young couple did not need at all. However, the Baroness was sure that the young couple needed a son who was easier to raise than a daughter. The Baroness, putting her hand on her granddaughter's head, said that raising a daughter is much more convenient. Moreover, the first daughter always gets to know the world faster and becomes successful, and all the women around her were just like that. But, thinking about the future, the moment of separation of the family from the daughter immediately appears, because the girl needs to find a worthy partner and get married successfully. Reichen could no longer listen to this nonsense. And the Baroness continued, flaunting the fact that she has both a daughter and a son, and enjoyed happy hours together with them, adding that if there was only a daughter, life would be miserable. Reichen, in order to stop this flow of reproaches in her direction, calmed the restless Baroness, saying that she and Harold would work very hard to solve this issue, and would definitely give a grandson as a present. One day, Harold's sister Shoni visited Reichen. The girl complained about her mother and her eternal reproaches for completely different reasons, which always left a rather unpleasant residue in the depths of her soul. Talking about the various situations that happened between her and her mother, the Baroness, Shani remarked that people like Miss Hadley would never change, think, and act in a different way. Reichen, agreeing with Shani's words, realized that she could not change anything and had already resigned herself to this unfortunate role of daughter-in-law in the Hadley family, which involved only complete obedience to rules and requirements. Harold always tried to make sure that his wife did not find out what his family, namely his mother, was saying about the girl. One evening, Reichen, entering the room, saw a sad man. The man became aware that his sister was coming to Reichen, and he was really worried about the conversation that took place between his wife and Shoni. However, Reichen reassured Harold that nothing bad had happened. However, Harold was sure that Shoni was boring Reichen with her nonsense, without controlling the context of her words and expressions. Reichen's husband really tried hard to protect his wife from evil tongues. Reichen casually said that it was just a normal conversation over a cup of fragrant tea, during which the girls discussed their feminine topics, which in no way affected her and her well-being. Although, in fact, during the meeting with Shoni, Reichen learned something that stunned her. It turned out that Harold's mother intended to find a new wife for her son, so that she could give birth to an heir. Shoni was sure that it was better for Reichen to know the whole truth about what was happening in her husband's family, instead of living in complete misunderstanding and lies, so she told all about it to Harold's wife. After some time, the Baroness grew old and died, never having waited for such a desired heir. The whole family, including Reichen and her young daughter, were with the woman until the very end of her life. When daughter Reichen came of age, the woman decided to talk to her about her grandmother. Having told all the details of the difficult married life, the woman saw a rather concerned reaction of her child. Daughter Reichen could not believe that her mother endured absolutely everything that happened in her life and did not understand what was the reason for it, and where the woman had so much endurance and willpower to endure it. However, Reichen asked her daughter not to be so categorical and assured that her father was not one of those who would be able to marry a second time, just for the sake of the birth of an heir and continuation of Hadley's family. In addition, the woman asked her daughter not to worry about this situation, because in her time, women endured worse treatment, being in different families and falling into terrible situations. Suddenly, Reichen was brought back from her memories to reality by the wealthy young ladies who were together with her at the reception at the Roland family. In order for Lady Reichen not to be completely sad in the end, the women offered the girl a walk. Hearing that Lady Reichen was going for a walk in the near future, Baroness Hadley decided not to miss an opportunity so that her son could get to know the girl better by sending him out for a walk as well. In addition, the Baroness reminded Harold about the blooming period of incredible flowers, namely roses, which was in full swing, so she advised not to miss this opportunity and take a walk through the greenhouse of the Roland estate. After asking permission from the mistress of this estate and receiving a positive response, Lady Reichen intended to go to the greenhouse, which was known throughout the kingdom for its unique and amazing flowers. Showing his gallantry, Harold offered his candidacy to Lady Reichen as a reliable escort for the duration of this walk. Of course, the girl was not against such a company, since this is exactly what she wanted. Walking through the paths of the incredible greenhouse, Harold recalled that they had met recently at the Eggen family's tea ceremony, emphasizing that he was very happy to meet again and get to know each other more closely. Harold finally understood why the Baroness had so persistently invited him to keep company at this particular social event. Miss Hadley had long noticed Reichen and considered her as her future daughter-in-law. Admiring the beauty of Lady Reichen, Harold assumed that after completing her studies, the girl would have an incredible number of suitors who would seek to fill her heart and take her as his wife. Gathering courage, Harold began to ponder the immediate future, talking about whether Viscount Copeland would allow his precious daughter to be in a relationship with a member of the Hadley family. With a sincere smile, Reichen replied that her father was quite impressed by Baron Hadley. Suddenly, the girl's thoughts were filled with the past, and Lady Copeland began to remember her married life with Harold. The couple never had anything in common. Harold was a hard-working businessman and a completely inactive person, while Reichen was very creative and aspired to achieve heights in art. Continuing the dialogue, the girl inquired about Harold's hobbies, and his answer was quite predictable, as he began to talk about his family business and mine management in particular. Harold's answers did not differ at all from those that Reichen had already heard in her past life, during the first acquaintance, so she did not expect to hear anything radically different. In a past life, Reichen listened to stories about business with enthusiasm, although she herself did not know anything about it, but later she realized that Harold could only speak eloquently, but not act at all. Looking at Harold, the girl remembered that his business had failed after all, because he did not have enough investment and valuable information, realizing that all his words were just a bluff. Reichen was aware that Harold only wanted to appear more capable than he actually was, but at the same time, she saw right through him. The girl knew all his qualities better than anyone in this kingdom. Looking at Harold, he seemed quite confident to Reichen, and in the girl's opinion, it was the right decision to show this side of himself without showing his true nature. However, Reichen did not understand what happened to her ex-husband, what he was thinking about when he was alone. In fact, Harold was a recluse and never shared his experiences with his wife. Reichen always felt that she did not give her full strength to her family and chastised herself for it, believing that, in case of more effort on the part of the woman, her family and Harold in particular would be happier. The girl believed that she had to be more attentive and caring to her husband, because after the death of his mother he was left alone, having only his daughter and Reichen. Realizing that Lady Reichen was immersed in her memories, because she almost did not participate in the dialogue with Harold, the man asked what the girl was thinking about. Reichen reported that her thoughtfulness was related to graduation. Reichen, having discarded all her obsessive thoughts of the past, realized that she needed to focus on the present life, not thinking about what was and what will happen in the future. Entering the conservatory, Harold and Reichen's breath was taken away by the sheer beauty around them, as the conservatory was truly incredible. The girl's eyes wandered, not knowing what to focus on. After looking at the red roses that were right in front of Harold, the man asked Riken whether girls like such flowers as a gift during romantic meetings. Instead, Riken replied that they usually like it, but there are cases when girls would not like to receive even the best flowers as a gift, if this present is from an unloved person. Having received the answer to the previous question, Harold became curious about the attitude of Lady Riken to these flowers, since he already intended to present them to the girl during the next meeting with Lady Copeland. Harold did not know much about floristry, and what bothered him even more was the fact that flowers wither very quickly if they are cut, and it is impossible to enjoy and admire their beauty for a long period of time. The man was sure that the best option would be to save money and give the girl something more expensive and useful. Hearing this, Rachel was quite surprised, as she did not expect such a thing. Looking at Harold, the girl realized that in 20 years of their married life, she had never seen such an expression on the man's face as she could watch at that very moment. Riken felt really happy to receive a bouquet of beautiful flowers as a gift, even if it was not very big, because it was a very sincere gesture for her, which the girl appreciated immensely. Of course, having received something expensive as a gift, a person will also be happy, and these emotions will be long-lasting. But Rachel was not sure that such gifts were truly sincere and could cause similar emotions. The herald understood exactly what the girl meant. Riken wanted to convey to her husband the idea that one should think more about the feelings invested in a gift than about its price and value. Suddenly, the girl again remembered her conversation in her past life with Harold's sister, Shoni. During that dialogue, she learned one of the secrets about her husband's life before meeting and getting to know her. It became known that by the time Harold and Riken were introduced to each other, the man already had a girlfriend, whom he was seeing secretly from his mother, who did not approve of her candidacy. And then it dawned on Riken. She realized that the present time coincided exactly with the time when Harold was meeting the girl with whom he dreamed of building a relationship, despite Baroness Hadley's numerous prohibitions. Gathering courage in order to verify information from her past life, Riken decided to directly ask Harold if he currently had a girlfriend he was dating and wanted to marry. The man was really puzzled by the girl's directness and somewhat embarrassed, replied that at that time he had a relationship with one young lady who was an ordinary person, not from a wealthy family. To change the subject of the conversation, Harold emphasized that his girlfriend was no match for Lady Copeland because the latter was extraordinary and he liked it better. Riken was completely disappointed by what he heard. Riken understood that she was standing in front of a completely different person, not her husband, whom she had known for more than 20 years of married life, because her Harold would never have said that about his lover. The girl began to think about the fact that this is not at all the reality that was in the past, and everything has changed, leaving no trace of the life that Harold and Riken lived together with their daughter. All the memories and dreams for the future that Riken had were shattered into small fragments in an instant, leaving wounds in the girl's soul, as she understood that, in truth, she would not be able to return many moments of her life. Seeing that Riken turned pale, Harold inquired about her well-being, to which the girl replied that it was better for her husband to return to the room where other wealthy ladies were waiting, and she needed to go home. Harold did not understand what could have caused such a sudden change in the girl's mood and thought that he might have offended her, but Riken calmed him down and said that the time spent with him was really wonderful. Riken understood that reality had completely changed and was not the same as it was before. The girl knew about Harold's beloved, but she did not want to cling to every little thing in his life until their wedding. She was sure that the best solution to this situation was to marry Harold and divorce Sir Sturl, because that was the only way she could get her daughter back. But there was one moment that the girl was incredibly afraid of. Riken speculated that Harold could have gone against his mother's will and fled the kingdom with his lover, leaving Riken with nothing. Twisting and lowering her head, Rachel began to cry bitterly as she didn't know what to do. Even after reincarnation, she lacked the wisdom to make important, fateful decisions. Arriving home, Riken immediately went to her room, where the maid Penny was already waiting for her, who, hearing about the young lady's return, decided to treat her to fragrant tea and a delicious treat. Penny suspected that there were events in Lady Riken's life that upset the girl. The maid decided to show her concern because, in truth, she cared for Lady Copeland, considering her her friend. Lady Riken didn't want to share her feelings with Penny, so she simply said that her mood had turned a bit sour due to the change in weather conditions and the sudden cold. Therefore, she asked the maid not to worry about her. Penny began to list numerous options so that Lady Riken could do something and not concentrate on bad thoughts. So she offered to bring paints or to call Rodrigo. Riken was genuinely impressed by her maid's sincerity, asking how she had so much free time to worry about her since it was known that Penny was going on a date with her lover that day. And though it was true that the maid was scheduled to see her that evening, she was very concerned about Lady Riken's mood, as she had recently heard Copeland weep bitterly after shutting herself in her room. However, Riken emphasized that the girl has absolutely no problems and reasons for concern, so she asked Penny to enjoy her life and not worry about her. It was obvious that Penny really wanted to sympathize with Riken and support her, but Lady Copeland convinced the maid that she had things to do in the evening, and she wouldn't have any time to be sad. As a sign of gratitude for the care shown, Lady Riken presented the maid with her silk handkerchief, which matched the color of the girl's eyes. Penny was incredibly happy to receive this gift. The maid had never received such expensive and valuable gifts in her life, so this gesture of Lady Riken really touched her, and full of energy and enthusiasm, she went on the date. Having completed her studies at the academy, the girl had no more reason to leave her estate, so she spent most of her time in her room. One day, Riken unexpectedly received a letter. It was a letter from Sir Sturl, who was very interested in Lady Riken's affairs and told about his plans. In his letter, the man said that he missed the girl very much and wanted to return to her as soon as possible. According to the tradition that developed in the relationship between Riken and Sir Raft, the man put a crimson maple leaf in the envelope, which reminded the girl that real winter had not yet arrived in Sturl's homeland. Sir Raft really put his heart into writing this letter, and every written word was filled with sincerity and incredible feelings that the man wanted to express. Raft hoped that Riken missed him too. Having finished reading this letter, Riken did not notice how the maid entered her room and warned the girl that dinner was ready, and Lady Copeland's parents were eagerly waiting for their daughter to appear at the table. Lady Riken, having received an invitation to dinner, told the maid that she would soon come down to her parents. However, the girl's thoughts were only about the letter that she still could not write for Sir Raft. Rejoining her family, Riken found only her father as her mother and brother were having dinner. Seeing Riken, Viscount Copeland joked that he even wanted to drink her tea, since he had been waiting so long for her. Over a cup of tea, a social conversation began between father and daughter, during which the Viscount asked about Riken's calm behavior lately, as the girl had been more impulsive before. And although Riken assured that she was already quite grown up, her father began to remember that not long ago he still held his little daughter on his lap, and now she is already a real young lady and future bride. The Viscount also asked her daughter about the prom. Instead, Riken started talking about her studies, or rather its completion, pretending that she did not hear the question about the social event. However, the Viscount still wanted to talk about the prom, and after hearing about the dress and jewelry from his daughter, he immediately changed the subject and asked about his partner Riken, who would accompany her to this event. Again, not hearing anything concrete from his daughter, Viscount Copeland decided to ask his daughter directly about her feelings for Sir Sturl, as he wanted to own the situation and understand Riken's intentions. And although in the marriage of aristocrats the most important thing was usually the presence of titles, according to Viscount Copeland, Sir Sturl could really take care of his daughter and become a worthy husband for Riken. The father emphasized that to create a happy family, love, mutual respect, and true love, which will be between two people throughout their lives, are necessary. However, Riken thought very differently. Even without marriage and a wedding, the girl could feel the warmth of love, because she already knew this feeling. The first time she held her newborn daughter in her arms, Riken knew what love was. After finishing her conversation with her father, Lady Riken headed to her room. The girl was really tired and wanted to lie down in her bed as soon as possible, where she could finally rest. Suddenly, passing by the front door, she saw a girl there. Walking closer, Lady Copeland recognized Penny, who looked very frightened, her body covered in bruises and scratches. Riken, not understanding what could have happened to Penny, was momentarily speechless as she was stunned by the sight of her maid and her frightened state. The worst options immediately began to emerge in the girl's head. Penny sat staring at one point, unable to say a word. Her eyes were filled with emptiness and complete despair, from which hot tears flowed, and her heart was filled with infinite sorrow. Riken was quite determined, as she assumed what had happened to Penny, which is why she asked the maid to muster up what strength she had left and go with Lady Copeland to her room. Entering the room, Riken asked Penny to sit on the sofa while she prepared everything necessary to bring the girl back to normal and treat all the scratches and bruises that were on her body and face. Taking a clean cloth in her hands, Rachel soaked it in warm water and began to wash the maid's face. Seeing that he had a scratch that would soon turn into a bruise, Copeland became very angry. Lady Copeland decided to immediately find out all the circumstances of the incident that happened to the maid, which is why, looking into the girl's eyes, Riken asked if Penny's abuser was really her beloved husband. The maid could no longer hold back her tears. After crying, the girl told about her biggest mistake in life. It was unacceptable for young girls to have intimacy with a man before marriage. However, Penny had very strong feelings for her lover, which is why she entrusted him with the most valuable thing, subsequently getting an unwanted pregnancy and aggression from her husband. Riken assured that she would be able to help. Usually, maids who became pregnant before marriage were kicked out of the estate. This was a huge stain on the girl's reputation, after which she was no longer hired anywhere, and the family immediately turned their backs on her. Riken knew this very well, and she didn't want Penny to ruin her future life. Lady Copeland could not allow things to turn out as they had in the past. An unexpected release and a life with a real monster. Lady Copeland understood that she was no longer a little girl, but an experienced and wise woman, and had the strength and experience to help Penny, making her life happy and carefree. Riken had a plan in his head. Waking up the maid, Riken asked her to quickly and efficiently get ready, giving Penny her robe. Lady Copeland's plan involved magic, which is why they intended to get to the wizard's tower. Wearing robes so that no one could recognize the girls, they quickly left the Copeland family estate, got into the carriage, and headed to a place where they could solve Penny's problem. It is accepted as a truth that children are the highest blessing of God. However, there were cases when it was necessary to get rid of them. Aristocrats invented a way to do this and secretly shared it among themselves. Arriving at the sorcerer's tower, the girls got out of the carriage and suddenly saw that a woman was present besides them. After examining her figure, they recognized Baroness Hadley, not understanding her motives for being in that place. Entering the room, the girls were met by Gerald, a student of Sir Stermel, who was surprised to see guests at such an early hour in the sorcerer's tower, and inquired about the purpose of their visit. Gerald assumed that Rachel needed to talk to Raft urgently, but the girl was looking for a blood mage, with whom she had a strong desire to meet and discuss one important topic. Gerald wanted to ask why Rachel had come to this particular wizard, but he remembered the rules of the tower and simply showed where the girls needed to go to find the one they were looking for and needed. The blood wizard was necessary for the girls, because it was from him that they could purchase a special magical potion that could terminate Penny's pregnancy and save her from an unwanted child and the condemnation of those around her. Who would have thought that the social conversations of wealthy young ladies would be useful to Riken? It was at such events that the girl, in her past life, learned about the existence of such a potion and found out where it could be purchased. Riken, noticing Penny's confusion, decided to finally admit to the girl that she could not allow her to make a decision on her own regarding the relationship with the same man who became the abuser. Lady Copeland was convinced that this grown man was not a worthy candidate for Penny. However, the maid, with tears in her eyes, screamed in a frantic voice that he had confessed his love for her. Riken could tell that Penny was wearing rose-colored glasses, so she made it a point to take them off. And really, will a person who really loves use physical force and drive out aggression on his beloved? However, Penny blamed only herself for all the problems. Riken, hugging the maid, said that the only one who turned out to be vicious in this situation was only her husband, and not anyone else, so it was only his fault. Lady Copeland immediately announced that she would always be against a union between Penny and that man. The maid was very touched by such support, and promised Riken that she would always be by her side and would never leave her. The girls were talking so much that they did not notice how a man of respectable age, who was dressed in a green robe and had a golden pendant hanging around his neck, had already entered the room. This was the blood wizard they were waiting for. Realizing that the sorcerer was forced to wait while the girls finished their dialogue, Rachel apologized for the inconvenience, and after saying hello, shared with the man the problem and the purpose of their visit. Looking at this man, Rachel couldn't believe her eyes, as she was sure that she would meet someone who could sell potions instead of having the chance to meet one of the greatest sorcerers. The man standing in front of Ryan with Penny was a truly respected person in the tower, although he did not show himself in public, and the most famous sorcerer of the time who possessed a vast amount of knowledge. Looking at Penny, who was completely shaking with fear as she had never dealt with magic spells before, the wizard asked if she was the one they were looking for, someone who knew blood magic. Taking the initiative into her own hands, Reconnecting replied to the witch that they were really looking for help for Penny, since there was a possibility that she was pregnant with an unwanted child and wanted to get rid of her by drinking a potion. The man, realizing that Penny met a vicious man on her life's path, took up this case. After saying the spell, an emerald-colored magical wave began to appear from his watch. The emerald light, blinding the entire room, instantly turned into a magic ball that was moving directly towards Penny. The maid, having touched her, lost consciousness and fell on Reconnecting. Reconnecting was very frightened for Penny, but the wizard assured Lady Copeland that he had only temporarily put the maid to sleep, as the procedure that awaited her could be difficult for the girl, both mentally and physically. The wizard explained that everything that was inside Penny's body would just leave her, and she wouldn't even remember anything. According to the man, it was much better for her health than the potion that the girls wanted to buy. Reconnecting was very surprised by such an act of the sorcerer, as other representatives of magic very rarely used charms to help in such cases. In addition, the girl asked to keep their meeting a secret. The sorcerer, looking at Reconnecting, said that nothing would go beyond this room. The man was surprised that Lady Copeland would take such a risk, worrying about an ordinary maid that she could just kick out. Hugging Penny tightly, Reconnecting said that you should help those who need it, especially if it's someone very close to you. And Lady Copeland sought to do all she could to help the maid. The witch was quite interested in Lady Reconnecting's figure and personality, for personal reasons, so he invited her to have a cup of tea with him and discuss some topics until Penny woke up. Using magic, the wizard was able to pour tea for Lady Reconnecting without using his hands at all. This really impressed the girl. Instead, the man emphasized that it would be correct not to be surprised at anything in the tower. The man decided to start the long-awaited conversation, as he was very curious about who Lady Reconnecting really was, since it was rumored that she was more famous in the tower than the princess herself. Hearing this, Reconnecting was very surprised, as she considered herself an ordinary girl from a simple family, and did not even suspect that anyone could talk about her in secular society. After Sir Sturl became Lord of the Tower, everyone was sure that it would be moved to the center of the sea, as everyone knew that Sir Raft craved solitude and did not need worldly recognition. The Time Lord thought that Sir Raft would want to see the king's face full of despair, but after receiving the title, Sturl surprised absolutely everyone by joining the society. It was rumored that Sir Raft made this choice precisely because of Reconnecting, as he did not want to be far from the girl. However, Lady Copeland denied everything and was sure that she was not the reason for such decisions. The girl understood that after receiving the title of Duke in the future, Sir Raft would not remain alone and would eventually choose a wife. Even the girl herself could not answer whether Reconnecting could sincerely rejoice at this. After looking at the sorcerer, Reconnecting finally understood what his power was and what kind of magic he possessed, noticing a golden watch around his neck. The girl inquired about this magical attribute. In her life, Reconnecting was familiar with one Time Lord. It was her daughter. Remembering her, the girl's eyes filled with sadness for her past life and for her child in particular. In the aftermath, Reconnecting heard something that made her gasp. The Lord asked if she knew the one who put time protection on her. The girl did not know anything, so she asked to tell her everything. In the magical dimension, defense is a skill for defense. With its help, sorcerers protected themselves from the magic they used in order not to harm themselves and others. Protection could be provided by the strongest sorcerers. Continuing his story, the Lord pointed out that if a simple, mortal man received the protection of time, it could only mean that it was the work of a very powerful and talented sorcerer. Not believing her ears, Reconnecting asked if it was true that time magic had been cast on her. The wizard replied affirmatively, adding that he had never seen such cases of magic being used on humans. Reconnecting knew that her daughter was quite a talented sorceress, but she could not even imagine that she could cast a spell on her own mother and did not understand the motives of such an unexpected act. The wizard, seeing that Lady Reconnecting had turned pale, asked about her well-being. The man understood that something unusual and secret was happening in the girl's life, which Lady Copeland carefully concealed. At the end of Reconnecting's past life, her daughter always brought up the topic of reincarnation and asked her mother to live her next life as she wanted, not even thinking about getting pregnant again. the girl realized that her rebirth was really the work of a loving daughter who wanted her mother to be happy and honest with herself in the next life, regardless of the opinions of others. Riken did not want to tell anyone about her secret, therefore believing to hide the information. She told the Time Lord that there was no one in Lady Copeland's circle who knew about magic. However, the sorcerer was very persistent, so he said that his hunch told him that the girl knew someone after all. Of course, it was not an interrogation, but only the inquisitiveness and curiosity of the old man. Quite often, there were cases that in aristocratic families the blood of sorcerers was mixed, so an ordinary person could not even feel how the magical reaction took place in the body. Such an assumption was made in relation to Riken. Back at the manor, the girls were met by a worried and agitated Miss Rode, who couldn't find her place when she learned that Lady Riken and Penny had left the manor grounds without warning. Miss Rode really cared about the girls. Stepping closer to Penny, the woman noticed fresh scratches on her face, the origin of which was known only to Lady Riken and the young maid. Riken, asking Miss Rode not to cling to Penny with impassioned questions, bade the young maid go and rest, for the night had been really hard and tiring for both of them. Rode still wanted to know the whole truth about the young girl's nocturnal adventures, as she had to report it to Riken's mother. However, Lady Copeland asked the maid to leave her, promising that she would tell exactly everything. Despite a sleepless night, Rachel could not sleep, as her thoughts were only about her own daughter, who probably put a time spell on her. Copeland couldn't believe it, as her child's level of sorcery was not that high. For her age, daughter Rachel really knew a lot and had many different skills. For example, she could use magic to bring withered flowers back to life, giving them even more freshness. At all stages of her training, Rachel always supported her daughter and sincerely believed in her undoubted success, knowing that one day she would definitely become a prominent sorceress and be known throughout the world. The best that Rachel's daughter could do was to stop the working time of some items. For example, the girl stopped the action of the usual kettle quite often, so that her mother could gather without haste. In everyday life, the magic of Rachel's daughter was always appropriate and useful. Sometimes, of course, she was wrong, and the range of her magic was limited. However, compared to other wizards, her powers were ordinary. Rachel couldn't wrap her head around the fact that her daughter possessed much greater powers, as she was able to return a person to the past. The girl could not believe that in the eyes of her daughter, Copland's life was so unhappy. And although Riken's life was not as carefree as she dreamed of, she did not consider herself an unhappy person. The days spent with my daughter were always full of good and positive emotions. Indeed, what was the value of her daughter's first steps, or shared tea and warm conversations on important and at the same time ordinary topics? And what about the fragrant roses that mother and daughter planted in the garden? Riken's life was full of happiness, only thanks to her daughter. And although Harold was not her prince, Lady Copeland's child became a real princess for her, whom she wanted to protect and create a fairy tale for. Looking at the table where a blank piece of paper lay, Riken decided to complete the task that she had not had the courage to do last time, which was to write a reply for Sir Sturl. Writing one word after another, tears began to flow from Riken's eyes. She did not fully understand whether the girl had made the right decision. And without giving herself a final answer, she continued to write a letter. In this letter, the girl expressed her boundless gratitude to Sir Sturl for the care and gallantry shown in all the meetings with her. However, at the same time, she asked her husband to forget about everything that happened between them. Releasing the magical bird and delivering the letter for Sir Raft, Rachel fell to the floor, feeling no surface beneath her. Her condition was similar to fainting. This decision was really difficult. On the same day, but in the palace of Marquis Raft, Sir Sturl gathered with his family at the dinner table. Ster's grandfather already knew that a representative of the king himself was coming to his grandson with a gift. Confirming this information, Sir Raft asked how the grandfather knew this, to which the latter pointed out that he had his people everywhere, who were quite prompt in informing the Marquis about the most interesting news. Miss Sirianel, calling her father a very extraordinary individual, could not understand why he would engage in such foolishness, sending people to such distant territories for incomprehensible purposes. However, the Marquis saw nothing wrong with his vigilance. Considering that the king of the lands of Elda was the most bitter enemy for his family, the man became curious as to the purpose of his servant's visit to his grandson. Ster said that the king intended to hand over the valuables for him, which he immediately returned. This information enraged the Marquis, as the latter understood that all the actions of His Majesty were just a bluff. Since Sturl had an uncertain status in society, everyone talked only about it. After becoming Lord of the Sorcerer's Tower, these gossips became even more widespread. That is why Raft decided to clarify everything. Sirianel was shocked by such intentions of her son, because his words could mean only one thing. Sturl wanted to accept the title of Duke and take a suitable place in the society of aristocrats. The Marquis was genuinely impressed, but could not hide the full range of emotions that were clearly expressed on his face. He couldn't believe it, as his grandson had never shown any interest in it. Sturl's mother supported her son in making such a decision, but she did not understand why Sir Raft had dared to do this so quickly, and she was afraid that hasty thoughts could become a fatal mistake. Unable to bear it, the Marquis asked his grandson bluntly if the decision he had made was related to a girl with whom he had a close relationship. What he heard shocked Sirianel, as she knew nothing. Marquis Raft emphasized that gossip is a fairly common phenomenon in secular society, and it is quite difficult to hide something from prying eyes. Therefore, of course, he knew about the meetings with Riken. Almost everyone knew that the illegitimate son of the Raft family and the Lord of the Sorcerer's Tower was quite serious about the young Lady Copeland, with whom the man spent all his free time. And although the Copeland family was indeed very good, and the Viscount himself was considered an outstanding person, according to the Marquis, the social class of this family was much lower, so Riken was not a worthy match for a grandson. Marquis Raft believed that the best option for Sturl would be a princess, creating an alliance with whom the man would be able to bring his family to a new and worthy level in secular society. At the same time, the Marquis understood Sturl's choice regarding Riken, a girl from a low-class family, since Raft always wanted to keep his distance from the royal family and have nothing to do with them. Sturl's grandfather was sure that his grandson should receive a suitable title for him, which would be worthy of his social position and magical abilities. This also applied to a couple for a man. Sturl, although he said that he did not need power and titles, but the man was not going to give up what was rightfully his, and he did not want to be treated like a weakling who could be cornered. Taking her son's hand, Sirianel looked into his eyes and asked if it was true that he had a girlfriend that Sir Raft really liked. To which Sturl answered affirmatively, stressing that it started recently. For a man, Lady Riken was a standard of beauty and manners. He liked absolutely everything. Sturl did not see any flaws or shortcomings. Lady Copeland understood Raft without words. It was with her that he was at ease. And when Sturl decided his question with status and titles, he was determined to propose to Riken and marry the girl, linking his whole future life with her. Listening to how sincerely, and with what admiration and awe, Sturl talked about Riken, Sirianel was sure that this girl was really a good person, and her son liked her immensely. It became clear to everyone that this rush was only because of Riken. Sturl had already planned, upon his arrival in the capital, to immediately request an audience with the princess, and immediately take the oath. Sturl was even thinking about the ceremony on the occasion of receiving the title. The man decided to consult with his mother about some details so that this holiday would be held at the proper level. This event meant almost nothing to Sturl. It was just a formality. In truth, the man just wanted to finally deal with the burden he had been carrying all his life. Sirianel was disturbed by such hasty and unexpected decisions of her son, on the adoption of which his whole future depended, so of course she offered him other alternatives. However, Sturl had already made up his mind, and Sirianel's attempts to change his mind were completely useless. The man was serious about dealing with his title before Lady Riken's prom. There was real strength and courage in Sturl's voice, which was noticeable to the naked eye. Sirianel realized that her son had really grown up and could make balanced decisions, so she trusted him. Suddenly, a magical bird flew into the open window, which was the mediator between Lady Riken and Sir Raft. When Sturl saw it, he immediately realized that it was a letter from Lady Copeland which she had sent at dawn. While reading this letter, Sturl's thoughts were full of complete misunderstanding, because before his departure from the capital, there were no contradictions and quarrels between the couple. The decision was made in a second. Sturl finally and immediately decided to return to the capital to find out all the details. Sirianel was incredibly worried about the situation that had developed. At that time, Riken, sleeping sweetly in her cozy bed, saw the same dream that haunted her more than one night in a row. At least at night, the girl could be with Sir Sturl, happily welcoming spring. Reichen dreamed more than anything in life, so that this dream would not end, and she could feel truly happy. Suddenly her younger brother ran into Reichen's room, who looked quite cheerful. The little boy was inquiring about his sister's well-being, as she had not eaten anything for several days, and was in a bad way, which could not help disconcerting Lady Copeland's family. In order to improve the mood and condition of his sister, the younger brother Reichen offered to taste the sweets that he had placed on the bed. Miss Rode, who was also present in the room, was enraged by the boy's action. And although at first glance Miss Rode was quite strict, in fact, the woman was incredibly worried about Reichen. Placing her hand on the girl's forehead, the woman wanted to check the temperature. However, young Lady Reichen was sure that she had absolutely no health problems, and her well-being was related to mental turmoil and depressed morale due to recent events. Looking at Reichen with eyes filled with pure concern and sympathy, Miss Rode also emphasized that Lady Copeland's mother, Miss Grace, was very worried about the condition of her beloved daughter. Reichen, hearing this, was going to visit her mother, and before that she wanted to take a bath and get herself in order. However, Miss Rode noted that the lady would not be helping Penny at the morning meeting that time. Miss Rode noted that Penny had been summoned to the head maid of the Copeland family estate since early morning. Hearing this, Reichen was incredibly worried and ordered Miss Rode to find her friend. Reichen was furious as she speculated on what exactly could have happened and why Penny had been summoned for the interview. Lady Copeland also asked Miss Rode to invite the head maid as well. Reichen decided to deal with the situation, so she asked another maid, about the same age as Lady Copeland, to come to her. The girl perfectly understood that Penny did not communicate closely with the head maid. Usually, Penny was always at Lady Reichen's side, carrying out the young lady's personal errands, while the head maid, in turn, managed the servants who were responsible for other chores around the house. Reichen, reflecting on the situation, realized that it was unlikely that the head maid knew all the details of their adventure with Penny. Then why did she call her? And then it dawned on Copeland. Reichen remembered that it was the head maid who had once introduced Penny to a man who had caused a lot of grief. When another maid entered the room, Reichen immediately stopped her and began to question her. The girl was only interested in one thing, whether the head maid of the estate introduced the other maids to this beautiful groom in order to provide the young lady with a carefree and happy married life. At that time, in another wing of the estate, Penny was with the head maid and the fruit vendor, who intended to atone for the incident with the maid by leaving the woman valuables. Penny couldn't say a word. The maid, taking a bag with jewels and valuables, promised that she would take care of the maid herself and fix the situation. When the man left the estate, the head maid began to teach Penny, and to convince her that this was the best option for the girl, and she would never find such a good person as a partner. However, the maid already knew exactly what to say, and was not afraid of the maid. Penny insisted that Lady Reichen would not allow her to date, much less marry, such a scoundrel and tyrant. The head maid was shocked by such audacity and boldness of the maid, because she had already made a deal with her husband, selling Penny as a common commodity. The woman convinced that the girl could not end everything like that. Penny couldn't hold back any longer, and succumbing to her emotions, the girl lashed out about the fact that her husband had beaten her badly, and she would not live with such an ugly person, and would forever remain with Lady Reichen. The maid was sure that Lady Reichen would be able to provide her with support and protection, and believed every word she said. The atmosphere in the room was very tense. In the midst of the discussion, Miss Rode joined. The woman was puzzled as to why Miss Rode had come to see her, as this part of the estate was run by the head maid, and their lines of work never crossed, so the maid inquired as to the purpose of the visit. Miss Rode was a self-confident woman and had worked at the Copeland family estate for a long time, so she was not at all puzzled by such questions from the head maid, and she answered that Lady Reichen was looking for them. The head maid did not understand the reason for which she had been summoned to Reichen, but it was an order, so they all went to Lady Copeland's room together to finally clarify the situation. The maid had always disliked Lady Reichen. According to the woman, the girl was very bold and self-confident, trying to behave like the mistress of this estate, which the head maid did not like very much. Upon meeting Penny, Reichen immediately ordered her to go to Lady Copeland's room to clean up. The girl wanted to speak specifically with the head maid in the presence of Miss Rode, and then personally with her friend. Reichen looked really stern at that moment. Immediately, Lady Copeland began her speech by questioning the head maid, asking her how well she knew the man she was so persistently wooing Penny with. The head maid pretended not to understand what Lady Copeland was asking her at all, but Riken was persistent and forced her to tell the truth. Before this conversation, Riken prepared carefully and learned from the butler that with the help of the head maid, many young maids met their future husbands. And it happened more than once. The head maid, realizing that everyone knew the truth, began to justify herself, saying that she only did this with good intentions and chose men with good character, thinking about the future of the girls. Since the woman held the position of chief servant and managed many affairs of the estate, of course she was familiar with a large number of different merchants, from whom she chose a pair for maids. Lady Riken was enraged by the fact that the woman did not check these men at all, and only guided by information about working moments, the head maid matched them with young maids. In Riken's opinion, it was not at all normal to bring a stranger to the estate and introduce him to Penny without getting to know him as a person. Listening to this, the maid could not find a place for herself. Lady Copeland knew that Penny's case was not an isolated one, for she learned from one of the maids that the head maid had long been engaged in such activities, for which she had extra income. However, the main maid had to blame the fate of these girls who, after marriage, either left their jobs or returned to their parents, as they could not live with the men that the woman chose for them. And every time the head maid did something like this, everything went quite smoothly, and the deals with the men were successful. However, in Penny's case, the woman had to put in a lot more effort. Riken was sure that the head maid did not have good intentions and did not sincerely want to help the maids, but only sought to profit from the fortunes of these unfortunate girls, whom she sold to merchants. Hearing this, the head maid's hands began to shake, and drops of sweat appeared on her cheeks. It was obvious that the woman became very nervous and worried that her dishonest activities were being exposed. Lady Riken emphasized that, in the case of finding out the involvement of the head maid in the situation that happened with Penny, the woman would have huge problems, since the young maid was a close person for Lady Copeland. The girl really wanted all the maids in her estate to be happy and able to find a worthy couple for themselves, but the activities of the main maid were, of course, only imbued with the desire for profit. Riken noted that she had noticed for a long time that the young maids in their estate quit their jobs quite often under various circumstances, and she expressed great concern about this trend. If people outside the estate found out about this, there would definitely be rumors of a problem in the family, which would reflect on Ration's mother, and of course on the head maid as well. The head maid was really worried, since until that moment no one had dared to undermine her rather influential authority in the estate. The woman was afraid of losing Miss Grace's trust and her job in general. In the end, Riken concluded that Penny's problems primarily concerned Miss Copeland, so she strongly discouraged the head maid from manipulating and mistreating the young maid. The head maid left Lady Riken's room. Instead, the girl decided to act very decisively, ordering the butler to ensure the termination of the contract with the supplier, since such a person cannot be dealt with. In addition, she asked her husband to do everything within his power to ensure that Penny's abuser never had the opportunity to be in the capital again. Butler promised to fulfill all requests. Miss Rode was really shocked by what she heard, because she could not even imagine that such machinations were going on behind her back. The maid was very worried about Penny, as she suspected what her husband had done to her. Riken decided to tell the maid about Penny's situation, but not all the details. Lady Copeland told only about the beating of the girl, which made her feel so bad. Miss Rode promised that she would keep this information a secret, as it also concerned Riken. In addition, the maid promised to invite a doctor she knew to the estate to help Penny. Penny couldn't calm down because she could hear absolutely everything that was happening in the next room. Riken was worried and tried in every way to comfort the maid and set her in a positive mood. Riken announced that she would do everything in her power to banish the scumbag from the capital so that Penny would never be able to meet him. The maid could not believe that the person she loved had turned into such a monster. Penny was so scared the last time she met him that she didn't say a word. Riken, hugging the maid tightly, said that she would also be very scared if she found herself in a similar situation. Instead, Miss Copeland already knew everything about the story in which the head maid was present. The woman was worried about her daughter's condition, which could worsen due to these intrigues and investigations. Grace Copeland was worried that Riken could lose consciousness, experiencing a lot of negative emotions. However, Lady Copeland assured her mother that she is stronger in spirit than she seems at first glance. Indeed, Riken's act was very noble towards Penny. However, the girl was eager to complete this matter, and was seriously determined to stop the activities of the main maid in the estate. By the way, in relation to Penny's abuser, another interesting point was revealed. As it turned out, he had already been married several times, but all his wives ran away from him, worrying about their lives and health. Grace Copeland promised her daughter that the head maid would definitely leave their estate, as such unscrupulous people had no place in their family. The woman was amazed by such treachery of the maid. Miss Copeland was very concerned about whether her daughter had been harmed in this situation. Instead, Riken assured that everything was fine. She was just tired of these intrigues that took place in the estate. Embracing her mother, Lady Riken was eager to get some advice or guidance from her, as she did not understand if she was doing the right thing by changing the course of history and jeopardizing the birth of her daughter. And although Riken did not have complete confidence that her actions were true and correct, she believed that she would definitely cope with all the difficulties that might come her way in life. Miss Copeland assured Riken that all troubles would soon be forgotten and asked her daughter not to worry too much about unpleasant little things. Grace could not watch her daughter suffer. And no matter how difficult it was for Riken, she decided to put an end to everything and live her life without regretting anything. An ideal life did not exist, but the girl had the opportunity to create it. Most of all at that moment, Riken wanted to see her daughter in a wedding dress and live with her the happiest day of her life, sharing all the emotions of happiness with the girl. However, by making one choice in favor of Sturl, Riken moved even further away from her dream, as with this act she radically changed reality, endangering the meeting with her daughter. That same evening, unexpectedly for all residents of the capital, a hurricane was approaching the city. Miss Rode, having closed all the windows in Riken's room so that the girl could sleep peacefully, invited Lady Copeland to dinner. On the other hand, Riken had no appetite at all and wanted to go to bed as soon as possible. The girl could not find a place for herself, thinking only of Sturl and her fateful choice, which could change her fate. Lady Copeland asked the maid not to worry about such trifles and to leave her alone. At that moment, there were various thoughts in her head, because of which the girl had no desire to do anything. Miss Rode wanted to help the girl and support her by listening to Riken's problems, but the young lady could handle herself and did not want to share her feelings with anyone. Standing by the window and watching the rain, Lady Riken wondered if Sir Sturl had been able to get her letter, as the distance between her estate and Raff's house was great. The girl considered all the options that could happen. Her letter might not reach her husband. In this case, Riken did not understand how she should behave when she saw Sir Sturl smiling as usual. The girl hated herself at that moment and these thoughts that were eating her up from the inside. Suddenly, Riken heard strange noises. Approaching the window, the girl was stunned by what she saw and could not contain her emotions. In front of her stood Sir Sturl, who caused a storm in the capital, because this was the only option to get to his beloved as soon as possible and find out the reasons for writing such a letter. The girl could not move from her place and utter not a single word. She did not understand how the man ended up in her room, since there were several days left before his return to the capital. Sir Sturl naturally apologized for the unexpected visit, but instead explained that he could not do otherwise, since Lady Riken, in her letter, stated that she did not want to see her husband again. Sir Raff decided to find out what could have happened between the couple in his absence that made Riken write such a letter, suggesting that the girl might be wary or afraid of her husband. The girl, without explaining anything, simply asked her husband to forget about her previous request to keep Lady Copeland company at the prom and apologized for the inconvenience. Sturl could not believe that all that was between him and Riken would remain just on an ordinary sheet of paper. The man could not realize that this was the end of their joint history. Riken's heart was torn into tiny pieces, but lowering her head so as not to look Sir Raff in the eyes, the girl said that she could no longer have anything to do with the man. Sir Sturl could not believe his ears. He was stunned by what he heard and could not realize what he had done wrong. However, Riken assured that Raff was not guilty of anything and it was not his fault. The girl did not know what to do and what to say. The thoughts in her head were intertwined, leaving Riken without a single hope. Tears flowed down the cheeks of the young lady, which the girl was unable to stop in any way. Seeing Riken's tearful eyes, Sturl came closer to her, extending his palm to her face. The man realized that even last time, when he saw her tears, she already wanted to break up with him. However, last time the girl did not have the courage to say everything she wanted. which is why the last meeting between Reichen and Sturl ended with a kiss that only gave the man a glimmer of hope. The man's cold and mysterious eyes at that moment were filled with only incomprehension. Sturl sincerely hoped to combine his life with Reichen, and in no way expected such a climax that came in their relationship. Sturl did not realize at what moment their relationship got a crack. Why did Reichen want to erase his name from her life, despite the fact that they had a great time together and understood each other half a word? The girl could not look into his eyes. She did not want to sink into them again. She did not want the continuation of their story. Reichen only quietly said that everything was wrong, and the problem was only with the girl. Sturl could not believe the girl, but he was sure that Reichen's parents found a better candidate for her, since the illegitimate son of the Raft family could not claim the heart of the young and beautiful Lady Copeland. Only 3 months have passed since the first meeting of Reichen and Sturl. But it was an incredible period of life for the two of them, full of only pleasant emotions and touching memories, which will remain in their memory for a long time. Looking at Reichen, Sturl always remembered the image of warm autumn, the man's favorite season. Just then, he felt complete peace, inner warmth, and harmony with himself. How Sturl dreamed of holding a girl's hand throughout his life. After all, his greatest desire was to make Reichen truly happy by facing every dawn together. To Sturl's question about his origin, the girl did not know exactly what to answer, but for sure, this was not the reason for her drastic and unexpected decision. Reichen never judged her husband for this. It was for the sake of Reichen and their future together that the man decided to accept the title, which could only bring the man extra trouble. However, of course, he did not accuse the girl of anything. The girl realized that due to her selfishness and greed for communication with Sturl, she caused indescribable pain to her husband. Reichen chastised herself for not ending the relationship earlier, bringing it to this point. Neither walks, nor correspondence, nor even more so, a kiss were to be allowed. The girl realized it too late. Reichen assured Sturl that she had no concerns about his background. However, the girl had her own completely different problem, which was the real reason, about which she had no right to tell and share with her husband, as she had to keep her secret until the very end. The girl understood that after receiving the title of Duke, Sturl would become unattainable for her, and if she chose to continue their relationship, the girl would never be able to turn back the course of history, which she was afraid of. Reichen felt ashamed in front of her husband. However, deciding to tell the truth, she said that after accepting the invitation to go to the ball, the girl did not consider the option of further communication. Moreover, at the moment when the girl invited Sir Sturl to go with her to the ball, she expected a refusal, which is why she took a risk by inviting him to a social event with her. Raft was shocked. Without giving Raft a chance to say a word, the girl continued to break his heart, saying that she had her own circle, friends, and personal life, and she should marry, but not Sir Sturl. Reichen, since childhood, did not grow up in an aristocratic family, never thinking about a radically different life. The girl was sure that she would not be able to live in any other way, which is what she told Raft about. After listening to Reichen, Sir Sturl intended to do everything possible to convince the girl to be with him. The man even considered the option of giving up the title in order to be on an equal footing with Lady Copeland. And although inside herself, the girl was incredibly touched by such a sincere gesture of Sir Raft and his desire to possess her, but noted that there was no need to change plans for her sake. Sturl was enveloped in sadness and grief. He could not accept the fact that all attempts to convince Reichen were completely useless, and the man just wanted simple, earthly love and a feeling of happiness. The girl, apart from gratitude for her husband's warm words and shared moments, could not express anything, since she had already made a final decision for herself, and no matter how painful it was, she stuck to it. However, the man did not want to hear words of gratitude or apologies. He only wanted Reichen to finally say the most cherished words to him, asking the girl if she ever thought about him seriously. Reichen, without answering Raft's question, said only that she was going to marry the Baron, Harold Hadley, with whom she would build a family. Having said this, the girl's heart could no longer withstand the tension. Sturl could not hide his surprise. Why did Reichen choose an ordinary baron who did not have wealth, magic, or titles? The man did not understand what was wrong with him, why everything turned out like this. And although it was known that Reichen's heart did not react to Harold at all and did not perceive him as a loved one, the girl was quite sure that she would marry him and give birth to a child for him despite everything. The girl was convinced that she would not be able to live her life only at the expense of love for her husband. That is why she needed her child, for whom Riken could devote herself completely. Riken was sure that having a child, she would be able to cope with all the obstacles and troubles. So after apologizing to Sturl again, she emphasized that she should go on her way in life. Inside Sturl, everything was absolutely destroyed. The man did not understand how much time it would take to fix everything and patch up the holes in his heart. The man was left without the meaning of life. And although the girl at that moment was also incredibly hard on her soul, she tried not to show it, skillfully hiding her true feelings. Riken was convinced that Raft was not one of those people who could love her. Sturl could barely contain his emotions of disappointment and boundless pain, but he could not force anyone to be with him if the person did not have mutual feelings. Therefore, he decided to let Riken go. Sir Raft was convinced that all the troubles of Lady Riken were precisely because of his appearance in her life, so after apologizing for this, he no longer occupied her time and disappeared out the window, leaving the girl alone. Riken could not realize that everything was finished. The girl barely restrained herself so as not to jump after her husband. Lady Copeland's heart told her that she had made a fatal mistake in her life. A few days later, Sir Sturl managed to arrange an audience with the princess and arrived at her palace. The woman was surprised that Sir Raft had changed his mind and asked to be given the title. However, Sturl noted that he only wanted to gain power and strengthen his status in secular society, not wanting to usurp the throne and compete for the princess. And although the princess understood that Sturl was still up to something and had a specific plan, she could not refuse him, since Sir Raft was the lord of the Sorcerer's Tower and a powerful mage of water and wind. Sturl immediately noted that he was not going to fight with the princess for the throne, but only wanted to get what belonged to him since childhood, the title of Duke of the Sagna, which was quite desirable, but not mandatory. This title was in no way connected with the right to inherit the throne. That is why the man assured the princess that this gift for him would not become a heavy burden for a woman in the future. The princess, after listening to Sir Raft, declared that she had no reason at all to refuse the man, because such a chance was given very rarely in life, and she had the strength to help him. The princess decided to clarify one more detail and inquired about Lady Copeland. The man replied that she could no longer worry about her presence in his life and not expect heirs. Upon hearing that Sir Raft had broken off his relationship with Lady Riken, the princess was happy at the news, as it was only to her advantage, but she chose not to inquire as to the reasons for this decision. Immediately after the audience with the throne, Sturl left for his place of power, the Sorcerer's Tower. After getting out of the carriage, the man got under a torrential rain, which seemed to tell him about the correctness of the decision he had made. Having entered the Tower of Sorcerers, Raft was met by his teacher, a powerful sorcerer and Lord of Time, who of course inquired about receiving a new title as a man, as this news quickly spread throughout the capital. However, Raft said that he no longer wanted to lie to himself and hide his desires for the title. Volodar was somewhat confused by the man's words, as he knew that Sturl had been against this very recently. The Lord remarked that he had been observing Sturl for a long period of time and concluded that he was not one interested in power and titles, so the man began to wonder what really motivated Raft. The Lord of Time was a very wise man, so he immediately understood that in this way Sturl was trying to get rid of his weakness so that the girl who overwhelmed his happiness could look at him from the other side. Sturl was very interested in what the teacher was telling him, so he asked to continue, as he was convinced that the master really knew something about Riken, since he spoke so confidently about it. The owner was sure that Riken stopped communicating with Sturl, not because of titles or statuses. The problem was much deeper. Even if Raft became emperor, it wouldn't be enough. Indeed, no matter what title and status Sir Sturl received, Riken would not change her decision, even if the man had the status of a baron, just like Harold Hadley, whom the girl chose. Sturl did not understand how his teacher knew such facts about his beloved. Instead, the man replied that he was just wondering which girl was able to melt his student's heart in the end. The Lord of Time said that he needed only one time to find out everything he was interested in about the girl. The man met many people, but not everyone was able to arouse the desire to learn more about him. After asking his teacher for advice, the man received the following answer. It was necessary not to focus on his own problems, but to try to understand others. Only this could really help Sturl. However, the ruler did not say anything more concrete, because he believed that Sturl should choose the right path himself. The man had quite a powerful force that could both help him and destroy everything. After leaving the academy, Sturl only thought about the words of his teacher, analyzing them. The man still came to the conclusion that Reichen's desire to become a baroness was a bluff and a lie. The man did not see the joy in Reichen's eyes when she talked about her future marriage to the baron. Arriving at the estate, Sturl was met by his butler, who informed him that Scylla had visited him. Scylla, Raff's cousin, together with her friend, were already waiting for the man in his living room, as the butler informed him. Sturl was not very happy with such guests, as he wanted to rest. Entering the estate, Sturl saw his sister, who greeted him joyfully. The girl was really happy to meet her brother, since she hadn't seen him for a long time, and immediately invited her to the table. In addition, Scylla immediately introduced her friend to Sir Sturl. It was really unexpected that the friend of Sir Raff's cousin turned out to be Kylie Wayne, who was madly in love with a man. Having greeted Sir Sturl, Kylie asked for a few minutes, but the man was really tired and did not want to spend time with the venerable young lady in this condition. Scylla, hearing Kylie's refusal, decided to persuade him herself, asking him to spare at least 5 minutes for their conversation or to join them for dinner, but Sturl apologized and said that he was busy. The man asked the girls to ignore him, as this was Scylla's house, and Kylie was her invited guest. Having wished a good evening, Sir Sturl went to his office on business. Kylie could barely contain her emotions, as she really wanted this meeting with her husband, which is why, saying that she had urgent business at home, the lady said goodbye to Scylla and left her estate. Sturl was in his office at the time. Calling Scylla, he inquired whether her friend had left the estate, to which the cousin replied in the affirmative, adding that the girl was very upset. Scylla was sure that Kylie had left because of her brother's tactless and somewhat rude behavior, for he had somewhat bent his stick, severely beaten Lady Wayne, and refused her, thereby offending the Countess. On the other hand, Sir Sturl did not feel guilty, as he always did when Scylla's girlfriends began to hang around his neck, demanding communication. Raft needed almost no attention from women. Scylla knew that many women were eager to talk to Sir Sturl and wanted to become his chosen ones, but this time her brother did not quite understand, so she decided to explain everything. The man noted that he had no idea to offend Scylla's girlfriend in any way, emphasizing that at that moment there was a very important period for his future career. And in general, he did not like such unplanned meetings. Realizing that there was a small amount of Scylla's fault in this situation, the girl apologized and promised to be more careful in the future. Sitting down closer to her brother, Scylla decided to inquire about his immediate future, as she had heard from her mother that next spring Sir Sturl would leave the estate and live alone. Raft explained that once he was granted the title of Duke of Sagna, he would indeed leave the estate and live alone, as he would need to start a family of his own, and he didn't want to live on his parents' money. Scylla was really saddened to hear her mother's words confirmed, as she missed her brother very much and wanted to live with him in the future. However, the girl asked very much that he and Reichen should definitely come to them. Hearing this name, Sturl's heart sank in his chest, and longing and sadness appeared on his face. The sister did not understand what was the matter, since it was not yet known that her brother had stopped communicating with Reichen. Seizing the moment, Scylla decided to ask her brother about his relationship with her friend Kylie Wayne, since the latter had been very much in love with Sir Sturl for quite some time. Scylla told her brother that Kylie also graduated from the academy this year and was looking forward to the prom, but unfortunately, she did not have a partner for this long-awaited social event. It was about this that the cousin wanted to talk with Sir Raft, as she was sure that her brother, as a true gentleman, would not be able to refuse the beautiful countess to provide an escort to the ball. And although the man no longer accompanied Lady Reichen to the ball, he was still forced to refuse his sister this offer, since he could not betray himself, since he still felt strong feelings for Copeland. Left alone with his thoughts in the room in the depths of the man's soul, there was only complete despair and despair. More than 10 days have passed since the last fatal meeting with Lady Reichen. However, this time was not enough to heal all the mental wounds of the man, and his soul began to burn. He understood that he needed to let the girl go, but his heart did not allow him to do it. That same night, but at the Copland family estate, Lady Reichen, feeling sleepless, decided to see if Sir Sturl's gift, namely a magical crystal bird created from water and wind, was working. After writing a letter and putting it on the bird, absolutely nothing happened, and then the girl realized that the end of their relationship had really come and nothing could be saved. A new year has come. The Tower of Wizards of the Elda Empire gladly welcomed Sturl Raft as the Lord of Water and Wind. After some time, Dermal was elected the new duke at the Imperial court. Having received a new title presented by the princess, Sturl could finally not worry about the influence of the Imperial family, since he had absolutely no relation to them now. The news about receiving a new title by Sir Raft spread throughout the country, reaching Viscount Copeland, of course. It was quite unexpected, and such gifts from the princess were very rare. Holding a real trump card up her sleeve in the form of the Duke of Sagna, the princess gained even greater recognition, authority, and power. It was really the right decision. Absolutely all residents of the country talked about this event. After the ceremony of receiving the title of Duke, Sir Sturl was quite a frequent guest of the princess. One day the woman learned that His Majesty had sent a gift for Sir Raft, so she inquired about it. However, without even opening it, Sir Sturl sent the gift back and informed the princess about it. People said that the emperor was greatly saddened by this, as his greeting was sincere. The palace was always full of various gossips and intrigues. However, the princess was determined not to pay attention to this, but to concentrate on important matters, of which the duke had many. Returning to his estate, Sir Sturl was met by his relative, Baron Ador Raft, who was excited by the fact that the princess invited the duke to her very often. It was already the second time in a week. Ador inquired about the affairs of the newly minted duke, to which the man replied that he had quite a few unresolved issues, as well as a large amount of documentation. In addition, Raft was building his own house. Instead, Ador noted that when he received his baron title, everything was much simpler, but he really understood Sturl and sincerely supported him in his endeavors, giving him faith in himself. Meanwhile, there were guests at the Copeland family estate. Reichen was visited by her friend Mariella, who was very concerned about the girl's well-being, as the latter had been ill for a long period of time and was at the estate. Seeing Reichen, Mariella was a bit concerned as her friend looked quite exhausted. The girl reported that all her acquaintances were very concerned about Lady Copeland, sending her congratulations. Having entered the estate, the girls headed to the music room, where Reichen usually held tea parties. During the conversation, Mariella told her friend that she knew about the divorce from Sir Sturl. Mariella believed that the reason for the divorce was precisely the acquisition of the title of Duke of Sagna, Sir Raft. Be that as it may, the girl still expressed her sincere condolences as she cared about this couple. After that, she said that she would be glad if Lady Reichen could go to the ball with Baron Hadley, as she considered him a worthy match for her friend. Reichen asked to clarify this opinion. Mariella explained that choosing a prom partner was kind of like choosing a groom, and she was really surprised that Reichen's parents were letting her date Sir Raft on the eve of prom, because it meant that they were not against such a man for their daughter. Mariella and everyone else thought that there was a strong sympathy between Reichen and Sturl, which could turn into true love. However, Reichen asked not to worry about it, explaining that this story remained in the past and now has nothing to do with the girl. Lady Copeland broke off all ties with her husband. A lot of time has passed, and it was really easier for the girl to talk about her relationship with Sturl, namely about their breakup. However, the girl always remembered that her husband believed in their future together. The girls decided to finish this topic, to avoid further traumatizing Reichen and to discuss the graduation ceremony. This event was just for men, where they received awards and gave speeches. For girls, this event was not as important as the prom, where they could declare themselves and make it clear that they had reached the age where they were ready to start families and get married. After discussing all the details of the preparations for the prom with Mariella, the girls shared their impressions of their dresses. In order to have time to complete all the elements, her friend Reichen said goodbye and went home. Pausing for a moment, Reichen realized that the long-awaited prom was tomorrow, and she couldn't believe it, as she had only recently been thinking about her partner for the event. The long-awaited evening came, which all the girls of the academy who graduated that year were waiting for. The prom was only a few minutes away, but Reichen was already ready to conquer the palace by wearing her dress. Her image was really flawless and perfect. Approaching the mirror to check her makeup, Reichen caught herself thinking that she couldn't get rid of this gloomy mood, which somewhat spoils the impression of her. Suddenly, her mother, Miss Grace, entered Riken's room, asking if everything was ready for the prom. Seeing her daughter, she could not hide her delight at her incredible beauty. And although Miss Grace was skeptical about the final option when first choosing the dress after seeing the image as a whole on Riken, Miss Copeland changed her mind dramatically. In the midst of the dialogue between Grace and Riken, a young maid entered the room and informed her that Baron Hadley had arrived at the estate of the Copeland family, who had accompanied the girl to this social event. To complete Riken's look, Penny brought out a pair of very pretty heels for the girl, which were just a little too high, so that Lady Copeland would look harmonious next to Baron Hadley and not worry about her height. Entering the estate of the Copeland family, Harold Hadley could not take his eyes off Riken's image. In turn, the Baron was dressed in a rather elegant suit, accented with an accessory in the form of a brooch. Descending, Miss Copeland and Riken naturally greeted Harold, who, with all his gallantry, kissed Miss Grace's hand and expressed his gratitude for the confidence shown by the girl's parents. Looking at Harold, Riken recognized the same charming and pleasant smile of her husband, which she had observed for 20 years, and the girl's soul became truly calm and good. Of course, Father Riken could not leave Harold without a parting word, asking him to keep a close eye on the Viscount's daughter. Hadley promised that Lady Copeland would be perfectly safe with him. Getting into the carriage, Lady Copeland thanked Harold once again for agreeing to accompany her to the prom after all, as her invitation was quite spontaneous and unexpected for her husband. Harold learned that it was his mother who suggested that Riken take her son as a partner for this evening, and this fact made the man somewhat embarrassed, putting him in an awkward position in front of the girl. However, Riken assured that it was simply Harold's mother's concern for her. The Baron was sure that Lady Copeland was very fond of his mother, since she had shown such an interest in the girl. The girl assumed that Harold's mother was seriously considering the option of a joint future between his son and Copeland. Riken understood that the situation that developed was uncomfortable for the two of them. To diffuse the tense atmosphere between them, Riken complimented Harold on his gallantry, calling him the truest gentleman she had ever met. In addition, Lady Copeland noted that the moment Harold agreed to become her prom partner, she felt peace and joy in her soul. The man was quite moved by Riken's confession. Looking at Harold, Riken understood that he stopped being nervous because she knew him very well, and as soon as a slight smile appeared on his face, it meant that he was completely at peace. Harold's childhood was really difficult because he became the head of the family very early, without a father and suffering under the oppression of those around him. But in this life, Riken was meant to help him. Arriving at the palace, Riken immediately offered Harold to dance one dance and go home, since the girl had no particular desire to stay in the social environment for too long. The girl explained that she did not like such sumptuous banquets and the gathering of many aristocrats in one place, so she believed that her appearance at the ball together with Baron Hadley would be quite sufficient. And even if the girl had stayed until the end, she was sure that everyone around her would be interested in asking questions about the Duke, whom she did not want to mention at all, let alone talk about. After agreeing that the couple would not stay at the ball, they went inside the palace. Entering there, Riken and Harold were amazed by the incredible beauty and magical music around them. Finally, Riken met someone she knew. It was her friend Deborah, who was very happy to see the girl together with Baron Hadley. Having met, the girls immediately exchanged compliments about their images. In the midst of social conversations, the attention of everyone around him was attracted by one young man who entered the palace. It was Baron Ador Raft, who had only recently re-emerged in society after a long hiatus. It was also known that Ador was not married, although he was already 24 years old. Riken noted that such a person is definitely not on their level with Deborah, and he needs a woman from his environment. It was even more shocking that the Baron accompanied Countess Kylie Wayne, as no one expected to see such popular personalities together. This couple looked really harmonious and elegant. Everyone knew that Ador is a relative of the Duke of Sagna himself, therefore, holding their breath, everyone was waiting for such a prominent figure of the kingdom. Deborah wanted to see him most of all. However, Harold, overhearing the girls' conversation, said that there were rumors that the man would not appear in society for some time due to his new title and personal problems. Of course, Deborah was very upset by such news, as she had always dreamed of seeing Ster in real life. However, Rachel breathed a sigh of relief. The first dances began. The atmosphere in the palace was magical, great music was playing, everyone was having fun and dancing. Suddenly, the attention of everyone around was drawn to the front door, which opened, and another guest joined everyone present. Riken could not understand who could have caused such a violent reaction. To the great surprise of all those present, Sturl entered the palace, who, upon entering the hall, immediately lit up the palace. Riken was not ready to see the Duke at all. Until that moment, she was sure that all feelings were already forgotten, but his unexpected appearance rekindled the extinguished sparks of love in her broken heart. The girl didn't understand how to do it right for her at that moment, so she couldn't think of anything better than to go to the restroom to catch her breath and think about this situation. Lady Copeland understood that she had done quite badly to the Baron and everyone around her, but at that moment she could not act otherwise. Locking herself in the room, Riken plunged into her thoughts. A worried Miss Rode ran into the room where Lady Riken was, who searched for the girl throughout the palace and worried about her. The maid pointed out that Lady Copeland had behaved wrongly towards the Baron. Riken herself understood that she should apologize for her behavior and for such an unexpected and spontaneous act, because she succumbed to her own emotions and could not make another decent decision. And although Lady Copeland was well versed in etiquette and knew the details of social behavior, Miss Rode reminded her that Riken must be balanced, despite everything, and make decisions with a cool mind. A true lady will never allow herself to lose her dignity, regardless of any situation and circumstances that might happen. Miss Rode reminded the girl of this as she was concerned about her honor and status. Riken, apologizing for such indecent behavior, said that of course she knew about this rule, but when she saw Sir Raft, everything flew out of her head and she was guided only by emotions. Miss Rode expressed her sympathy for Riken and noted that she looked perfect as her makeup and hair were completely intact and she was ready to step out into society again. However, the maid still cared about Riken's well-being, so she inquired whether the young lady wished to return home. Instead, Lady Copeland decided to apologize to Baron Hadley first. Riken asked Miss Rode to help the girl and invited Harold to a room that Lady Copeland would find where they could talk alone. The young lady decided to act immediately. After going out to all the aristocrats who were celebrating the graduation ball, Riken realized that she could not find Harold in that crowd and calmly talk to him, so she decided to look for a room for seclusion. Only after opening the door of one of the rooms, Riken saw Countess Wayne, who was with two of her friends. It was these girls that Lady Copeland was missing, who was worried about something completely different. The last time Riken saw Countess Wayne was at the Egan family's tea ceremony. Kylie, of course, did not want to miss a moment so as not to talk with Lady Copeland and find out the moment that she was very interested in. Having offered to talk, the girls went aside. Wayne was seriously determined to find out all the circumstances why Riken did not come to today's ball with Sir Sturl, having changed partners. Since Wayne was in love with Sturl, all the moments that were connected with him interested the young lady. Kylie was furious because Riken had been rather rude to Raft by choosing the Baron for this ball. The Countess was sure that by her actions, Riken purposefully dishonored Sturl's honor, since the girl first invited her husband to the graduation herself, and then, on the eve of the holiday, found a replacement for him. The Countess's eyes were filled with rage and anger. She did not understand how Riken could do such a cruel thing to someone whom Wayne loved and desired so much. She did not realize what attracted Raft so much to this girl. However, Riken behaved quite dignified, not reacting to the provocations of the Countess. The girl once again emphasized that she had discussed this with Wayne before, and said that Sturl was not suitable for her as a man. Especially after his parentage became known to everyone and he was given the title of Sagna Duke, Riken considered herself completely unworthy to even have the slightest chance to dare to get close to him. On the one hand, Wayne, after listening to Riken, agreed with her, but her anger had already started, and the girl was sure that Lady Copeland had no right at all to start communicating with Sir Raft. Riken said that she would definitely apologize to the Duke, but only Sturl, but definitely not the Countess, would make the decision about forgiveness. In this case, Wayne had no right to reproach Copeland. Suddenly, one of the wealthy young ladies intervened in the conversation and asked the young ladies not to argue, as there were other distinguished guests at the ball who could approach them at any moment. Lady Riken was already about to leave the palace, but Wayne's friends persistently suggested that she drink wine with them and stay a little longer. The girls did not let Lady Copeland go out. Grabbing her hands, the girls had no intention of letting her go, telling her not to be so cheap. Suddenly, one of the girls specially released a glass of wine from her hands directly above Riken's head. The girl understood that in case of spoiling her outfit, the ball for her would definitely end on a shameful and humiliating note. Suddenly, the girls were approached by Sturl, who stopped the liquid in the air with his charms. Everyone was shocked by the attentiveness and promptness of Sir Sturl, who reacted very quickly and saved Lady Riken from the shame of the whole secular society, acting like a real hero. Seeing the Duke, Wayne's girlfriends who planned to mock Riken and humiliate her were speechless because they were somewhat afraid of Sturl and his magical power, so they did not know what to say to him. One of Wayne's friends began to make excuses, saying that this situation happened precisely because of Riken, who was going to leave the banquet, and they only, in order to support the girl, offered her a glass of wine. However, of course, Sir Sturl did not believe the lying girls, since he had seen this situation with his own eyes. But he decided to ask what happened, precisely from Lady Copeland, who was a direct participant in the event. But Riken did not want to tell anything and complained to the Duke. The man held out his hand to help her get up, but the girl did not want him to bother and said that she had the strength to get up on her own. Wayne felt jealous and immediately began to make excuses, but the Duke told her not to make a fool of him, as he knew it was her doing. Sturl was disappointed in Lady Wayne. Baron Ador tried his best to calm the Duke, telling him that this was not a matter in which such a respectable person as himself should interfere. However, Sir Raft wanted only one thing: a private conversation with Riken. Instead, Ador, seeing that the Countess of Wayne had turned pale, suggested that she go outside with him and get some fresh air so that she could calm down and normalize her condition. Finding a calm and quiet place where Sir Sturl and Riken could talk, they stopped. Of course, the girl, first of all, expressed her gratitude for another help of her husband, which was necessary, and although the man assured Riken that she had nothing to worry about, the girl was worried that a person with such a title and status in society was interfering in ordinary girls' conflicts. After drinking a glass of red wine and gathering courage, Sturl said that he never did anything for Riken just like that. He always cared about her because that was what he wanted. His feelings have not died down yet. Lady Riken admitted that she always thought of her husband in this way and considered him a worthy person, so she wanted to show him only her best sides, but she didn't want to cause discomfort anymore. Remembering that Lady Riken was already several weeks late with congratulations on receiving the title of Duke, the girl bowed to him and wished him career growth on behalf of his entire family. Looking at Riken with eyes full of hope, Sturl asked her if that was all she wanted to tell him, as the man expected a completely different conversation and hoped for a rekindling of their relationship. However, although the girl wanted to say more, she could not. Riken only emphasized that in the future, all the eyes of the society will be attached to the figure of the Duke, and he will definitely meet his fate. Sturl was enraged by Riken's words because the only woman he needed was Lady Copeland, and he did not want to hear such things from her. The man only wanted to touch her hand again. Not knowing where to turn her eyes from Sir Raft's gaze, Lady Riken lowered her head and waited for the next move from her husband, as the girl was no longer able to speak and did not know how to act properly. Taking everything into his own hands, the Duke, coming closer to the girl, touched his palm to her face, gently speaking so that she would no longer hide her beautiful eyes from him. However, the girl could not reciprocate Sturl, as she did not want their story to come to life again. Riken was afraid to give her feelings a chance and make a fatal mistake in her life. Looking at Riken, Sturl could not recognize in this girl the beautiful lady with whom he was very happy. Showing his concern, the man began to inquire about Riken's state of health. He was interested in everything: her emaciated face, whether she was in pain, whether she was eating well. However, Riken said that everything seemed to her husband and she did not need his care, as she could handle everything on her own. Sturl still wanted to find out the whole truth and put all the dots in their relationship. He no longer had the desire to let everything go by itself. The man decided to take matters into his own hands and ask why the girl was avoiding him. Sturl was sure that after all Riken felt something for him because otherwise she would not have avoided him. It was really difficult for the girl at that moment, and she asked to stop the conversation. The girl assured that in the past she was very frivolous. She apologized profusely again and said that these apologies would indeed never be enough to make up for her guilt before Sir Raft. In order to definitely push the man away from her, Rachel said that she purposefully wanted to get close to him, to play with his feelings, and asked Raft not to waste any more time on such a treacherous girl. It was already known that Riken was going to marry Baron Hadley and become a baroness. Looking seriously at the girl, he asked her if she really loved that man and thought about him more than Raft. Sturl was convinced that Baron Hadley was certainly a good person, but not the one Riken needed. He was not sure that this was the man with whom the girl could spend her whole life truly happily. Hearing this, the girl's expression became even more upset. She did not want to talk about this topic anymore, as these words and thoughts about the future cut her heart and soul, leaving deep wounds. After the last conversation with Riken, Sturl had an unspeakable desire for the girl to suffer as he did, but later he wanted Lady Copeland to be happy and free and have a stable life. He really loved Riken, so he didn't want to see her suffering. The man really wanted the girl to have happy eyes and a sincere smile. Taking her by the hand, Sturl said that he would always love Copeland. Riken, hearing this, told Sturl that the love between a man and a woman was not so important in her life, and she had something much more valuable, something that would never be exchanged for passionate feelings and emotions. Leaning against Sturl, Riken could no longer contain her emotions, crying bitterly and frantically shouting that she had no feelings for the Duke and that Sir Raft was definitely not the meaning of her life. However, Sturl did not believe a single word of the girl, as he was sure that she also loved him, so the man asked her to repeat the same words, but on the condition that she look into his eyes. At that moment, the girl, remembering the happy life when she was next to her beloved daughter, decided to finally share her secret with her husband, saying that the most valuable thing in life is her daughter. Sturl, hearing this, was indescribably confused and shocked. He definitely did not expect to hear this from Ration, therefore, without saying a word, he continued to listen to the girl's incredible story. The girl said that she was actually 45 years old and not a 20-year-old young lady. Ration was already a mother who raised a beautiful daughter whom she valued very much and was not ready to trade for anything. Riken shared her secret with Sturl, saying that in her past life she died tragically in an accident, but a miracle happened and she opened her eyes, but in the body of a 19-year-old Lady Copeland. The girl assured that her confession to Sturl was the sincere truth, and she was in her right mind, not having any problems with her head. Although it was really hard to believe what the girl said. Sturl's eyes doubled in size. He really couldn't believe the truth of everything Riken had told him, but he really wanted to help the girl and figure out this situation. Falling to the floor, Ration began to cry and scream wildly. It wasn't a dream. In the past, Lady Copeland actually held her daughter in her arms, hugging her tightly and singing her lullabies at night. Embracing Sturl, Riken said that it did not matter whether she loved the man or not. The most important thing in her life was her daughter, whom she wanted to see again and return to her reality. Sturl could no longer watch Riken suffer, so taking her in his arms and using his magic, the man took Lady Copeland to a place where she could be safe. A few seconds later, they were already at the Duke of Sagna's estate. After assuring Riken of the safety and privacy of their stay, Sturl held out snow-white napkins for Lady Copeland. As Lady Ration wiped the tears from her face while fixing her makeup, Sir Raft pondered the situation incessantly, recalling the words of his teacher in the Wizarding Tower. Wizards were always interested in the subject of time travel, but Raft knew only one thing: it was impossible, and there was only one option in his head, but he could not believe in it. Dismissing this variant as the man did not believe in its effectiveness, Sir Raft suggested that Ration could see a vision from the future that was so realistic that she believed it. Sturl knew that many powerful sorcerers, after conducting numerous studies, found that in theory, time travel was quite possible, but in practice it had absolutely no effect. Ration was quite sure that she had indeed gone back in time and started her life a second time, starting from the moment she was reborn as a 19-year-old young lady. The Duke convinced the girl otherwise, as he explained that magic can only be used in the material world. That is why it is impossible to send an untouchable soul into the past. Since magic obeyed the boomerang law, there was only one way to move a person through time. A sorcerer who could do this would have to turn back time for the entire world except himself. Although it was hard to believe, in theory, it was possible. Ration was puzzled by what she heard as she understood what could have happened to the person who put the time spell on her. Raff continued, saying that even by turning all time back 1 second, the sorcerer's body would receive a corresponding blow, the force and power of which was hard to even imagine. Riken couldn't take it anymore. She knew very well that her daughter was a time sorcerer, and she was the one who cast such a spell on her, sending Copeland to her past so that she could correct her fate.